Present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud, and Sheila Hancock in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parson.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, and welcome once again to Just a Minute, and of course a very warm welcome for these four scintillating players of the game, who once more I'm sure are going to enjoy themselves entirely for your pleasure, and try and play Just a Minute, in which they will all try and speak at different times, we hope, on some unlikely subject that I will give them without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject. The others may challenge them if they think they're guilty of doing any of these particular things, and if I agree with the challenge, they will gain a point, and if I disagree, they will give a point away. That's the way we play, that's the way we score, and let us begin this particular show with Clement Freud. Clement, the subject that dear Messiter has thought of for you is demonectomy. So, can you talk for just a minute on demonectomy, starting now?
In O'Connell Street in Dublin, the...
Derek Nimmo has challenged. Why?
Hesitation.
Yes, there was a definite hesitation, yes, and therefore I agree with your challenge. The subject matter obviously completely inhibited Clement. You take over the subject with a point to yourself, Derek, and there are 55 seconds left for demonectomy, starting now.
In one of the darker and more gloomy parts of Hades, I was wandering alone amongst...
Clement Freud, you've challenged. Why?
Deviation.
Why?
He's still alive.
You don't believe it?
He could well have been wandering. He could well have been wandering. He could well have been wandering in a dream or a nightmare.
He didn't mention that.
It didn't. He had only just
It was
started.
a statement of fact.
According to the way I see it, yes, and that fact could have been a dream. So he could not necessarily deviating from the subject. Therefore, I disagree with the challenge. Derek Nimmo gains another point and keeps the subject with 48 seconds left. Demonectomy starting now.
And in my dream, there came towards me a man with a forked tail and a cloven hoof. And as he drew nigh, this demon necked at me.
Kenneth Williams, why have...
Repetition, he said demon twice. Said it before and said it just now.
He said... Did he say...
I said the subject on the card.
He said actually demonectomy, and he did say demon. That's right, you said demon
first
twice.
time.
I know, I said this demon necked at me.
Yes, and you've also said demon. So, Kenneth, you were listening very well, and you gain a point and the subject, and there are 38 seconds left for demonectomy starting now.
This word, of course, means to have one cut out of you. Like appendectomy, which is your appendix cut out. A demonectomy means to have a demon cut out of you.
Derek, you've challenged. Why?
Well, the same challenge, repetition of demon.
Derek, I agree with your challenge. You gain a point, and there are 25 seconds left for demonectomy starting now.
I suppose the most classic case of this happened in St. Matthew's Gospel, when Jesus Christ cast the demons into swine and sent them tumbling over a cliff. This was a very interesting...
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Deviation. That is not ectomy.
No, it's not cutting out, that is casting out. And it was a religious way it was done. It is not done by surgery. And I would
Brilliant, yes. No flies on you, Nick. No flies on you.
No,
you know your stuff.
Thank you very much. Kenneth, you overwhelm me. Clement, you have the subject. You've gained a point. There are 12 seconds left for demonectomy, starting now.
And in the capital city of Era, there lives this family called oectomy.
Sheila Hancock, you've challenged.
Hesitation?
Yes, I agree. I'm sure Clement's getting something absolutely fascinating, but he can't quite find the words to get there. I agree with the hesitation, Sheila, so you gain a point and you speak up for the first time on the subject of demonectomy with 8 seconds left, starting now.
So you are...
Clement Freud, you've challenged.
Hesitation.
No, I disagree. Sheila Hancock has another point, and there are 7 seconds left for demonectomy, starting now.
So you are taken into hospital and a needle is put into your arm and you are given pethidine, and when you are under, a mask is...
When 60 seconds is up. Ian Rossiter blows his whistle, and whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. In this case, it was Sheila Hancock, who now at the end of that round she's equal in the lead with Derek Nimmo. They both
Well,
have
I'll
3
make the
points.
most of that because I don't think I've ever been in the lead before.
You won once, I think, Sheila.
Have
You've
I?
done jolly well, yes. Don't be so modest about your ability in the game. Kenneth Williams, will you begin the next round for us? The subject is getting ready to go out. Will you talk for just a minute on that, starting now?
My mother always said to me, the first thing to remember is put your clean underwear on. Because if you're ever caught in an accident and they undress you and find your dirty underwear, what will they think of you and your background? Which is very true, even to this day. So first thing I do is to check that part of the clothing. Then, of course, we have to have the handkerchief and the odd accoutrement that might come in handy on the journey, so to speak. Check the front door, check the water supply.
Clement Freud, you challenge. Why?
2 checks.
He's been checking rather a lot, yes. I agree with your challenge, Clement, so you take over the subject, having gained another point, and there are 26 seconds left for getting ready to go out, starting now.
One of the things that takes longer than most is combing my hair. I find the less... of it-
Sheila Hancock, why do you challenge?
Deviation. I just don't believe that. Looking at Clem's
looking
hair.
at him, I couldn't believe it would take you longer than anybody else. You might decide to take longer, but Can you explain to us, Clement, why it takes you longer?
Oddly enough, the less hair you have, the longer it takes to comb. I mean, in the old days when I had as much hair as,
Nicholas Parsons.
Nicholas Parsons, it was a straightforward thing.
Well, I am
but
not
now
going to
that
judge.
you haven't got him, it's really ask any bald man, woman, or child in the audience.
I can't ask all the bald men and women and children to vote on this, but as it is obviously very difficult to judge if you're not, if you have as little hair as Clement Freud, I will let you be the judge whether you think it takes longer to comb a partially bald head or not. In other words, if you agree with Sheila's challenge, will you please cheer? And if you disagree with her challenge and you're on Clement Freud's side, will you please boo? And will you all do it together now? Well, all I can say, the cheers kept it up the longest. So I have to give it to Sheila Hancock, who has much more hair than Clement Freud. She takes over the subject of getting ready to go out, and there are 18 seconds left, starting now.
It usually starts with a darn great row with whoever I'm going out with because I am inclined to forget things, and I several times go outside and come back again. I have to fill my handbag with my powder compact, my lipstick, my keys. Then I have to put a clean handkerchief in my pocket, like Kenneth Williams, but usually I can't...
Once again, Sheila Hancock was speaking when the whistle went, so she gains that extra point, and she has jumped into a commanding lead of 2 over all the others at the end of that round. Derek Nimmo, will you begin the next round? Slips. That is the subject. Will you talk to us about slips for 60 seconds, starting now?
When I am getting ready to go out, I always first of all put on my slip.
Sheila Hancock, why do you challenge?
Deviation.
Why?
Well, it's supposedly kinky. You can't wear a slip.
Well, he may be kinky. He may wear even more kinky.
Show us your slip then. Go on, prove it.
No, Derek, please! Whether you have one or not, he is not technically deviating from the subject on the card. So,
All right.
Derek, however kinky it may sound, please
Well, I
continue.
want him to go on anyway because I want to see what else he puts on.
Well, I disagree with the challenge, so Derek gains a point, and there are 55 seconds left for slips, starting now.
Once when skating on the Round Pond in Kensington Gardens, when it was frozen in a July morning.
Clement Freud, why do you challenge?
I don't believe that.
I quite agree. I don't believe it was ever frozen in a July morning.
Or afternoon.
Or afternoon, yes.
You have no imagination. Eh?
No, I'm not going to give you your imagination. I think I could have given you before, not on this one. So, Clement Freud, you gain a point, and you take over the subject of slips, and there are 48 seconds left, starting now.
I well recall when playing cricket at Wembley Park, the captain approached me and said, "Where will you field?" And I said, "Anywhere, as long as it's close to you." And he was fielding in the slips, which is how I became to be a wicketkeeper. The bowler took the ball and thundered down to the crease, delivered
Derek Nimmo, why do you challenge?
He's not talking about slips now. He's talking either about cricket or wicket keeping, but not talking about specifically about the slips.
No, he isn't. He went on to wicket keeping, he went on to bowling, and that is not the slips. So,
But
Derek...
if you don't bowl, the ball will never come to the slips. I mean, you have no imagination.
Derek Nimmo, I agree with your challenge. You take over the subject of slips, and there are 26 seconds left, starting now.
I think there's a tremendous amount of truth in the saying, there's many a slip between cup and lip. You have only to look at the way I am lifting this cup at this moment.
Clement Freud, why do you challenge?
Second cup.
You gain a point, and there are 16 seconds left for slips, starting now.
Before I get ready to go out and brush my hair,
Sheila Hancock, why do you challenge?
Deviation, he's talking about the last subject. Or the subject.
Well, he
before
could
last.
still, he hadn't got going. He could well have been going into the slips.
All
You know, he
right.
could well have been going to feel on the slips and combing his hair for that purpose. There are 12 seconds left for the slips. Clement, starting now.
my brush slips and the needles impine themselves in my scalp, which is terribly painful.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Deviation, there's no such thing as impining.
Have you got a diction with you, Ian Messenger? Ladies and gentlemen, be honest, do you think there's such a word as impining? If you do, cheer, and if you don't, boo. All do it together now, please. So you have another point, and you have 5 seconds left for slips, starting now.
Such impinction causing me...
Kenneth Williams, you've challenged. Why?
He said impinction, there's no such word.
They have decided
No,
that there is
no.
such a word as impine.
Yes, but there's no past tense impinction. Kenneth Williams, you have the subject now. There are 3 seconds left for slips, starting now.
I had to wear somebody else's slip once in this show in Southeast Asia.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
The subject is slips.
Yes, but it was one of these many slips that he was wearing. So he's all right. He has another point, and he keeps the subject. There's 1 second left for slips. Kenneth, starting now.
And I got this itching all over, and they said,
Well, a very interesting situation at the end of that round. Clement Freud has a lead of 2 over the other 3 who are all equal in second place. Sheila, it's your turn to begin the next round, and the subject is irresponsibility. So will you talk for 60 seconds on irresponsibility, starting now?
I suppose the only time that you are totally irresponsible is when you are a baby, because then everybody does everything for you.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
deviation, she's always irresponsible. I've seen her on occasion being most irresponsible. It's true. She rushes about, yes, it's true. She's got this moped and a crash helmet, and she rushes about London being the most irresponsible and outrageous.
I'm
and
sure
shouts
she's quite
rude
capable of being
epithets at
irresponsible.
people. Yes, and to say that she's just said she's only irresponsible when she was a baby, they're all lies. Absolutely lies.
I said the only time you are irresponsible is when you're a baby. I'm going to go
How
on to
dare you
this
bring
my
me up? How dare you say such a
I'm
thing?
sure that she can be irresponsible, and also she can be thoroughly responsible now. So therefore it is difficult to judge. I think the only fair thing to do is to leave the subject with Sheila and say that she has 52 seconds left for irresponsibility, starting now.
I repeat that when you are lying in your pram with nothing in the world to concern you except how you suck your bottle or whatever you think.
Kenneth Williams, you challenged.
Well, it's deviation, sucking bottles.
Yeah.
Disgraceful.
Yes, you don't suck the bottle in the pram, you suck the teat at the end of the bottle.
Precisely, that's the
Yes.
point.
How dare!
So I'll let you have that.
Well,
one,
I
Kenneth.
used to suck my bottle.
All right, so Kenneth gains a point, and he gains the subject of irresponsibility, which he illustrates beautifully for us. And there are 44 seconds left, starting now.
This comes to us in moments of rhapsodic absent-mindedness. We suddenly fling off our inhibitions and we become irresponsible to a degree, sometimes alarming, viz. the behaviour of various governments we've all seen in our time behaving extremely irresponsibly. I would be hard put to...
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Hesitation.
No.
Not quite, no.
I'd be hard put, he said.
Might be hard.
Was it a strange way?
Yes, but he was catching his breath. It's all right. Only just got away with it, Kenneth. I disagree with the challenge. You gain another point, and there are 17 seconds left for irresponsibility, starting now.
It sometimes, of course, comes from senility, when the mind no longer has control of the body and they say he is totally irresponsible. He can't help it.
Clement Freud, why do you challenge?
Repetition.
Of
He said
what?
irresponsible.
Yes, he's actually said it.
You're allowed to, you're allowed to subject four times.
No,
You're allowed
Kenneth,
to-
Kenneth, will you... Kenneth, before you take your jacket off and really get down to a fisticuffs with Clement Freud, may I point out that the subject is irresponsibility.
Oh, well,
No.
you're only quarreling over the titty bit. That's all,
In
isn't
this
it?
game, it's enough to quarrel over, I can assure you.
Oh.
But actually, you've used the word
I was having a go there, I was throbbing with it there.
You used the word irresponsibility and you've said irresponsible 3 times. And so I agree with Clement's challenge. He takes over the subject. 5 seconds left. Irresponsibility starting now.
So I turned to the 36 men, opened the lion's cage, and said, "Follow me here, and you will be..."
As Clement Freud was speaking when the whistle went, then he gains the extra point, and he has kept his lead of 2 over
Oh, you
Kenneth
mean
Williams.
Sheila's lost the lead?
Yes.
Oh, she's lost the lead.
You're in second place,
rotten.
Kenneth. And Sheila's in third place with Derek. Kenneth, will you begin the next round for us? The subject is songs I love.
Oh, good.
Oh, dear.
This has rather shattered you, but I'm sure you can talk about it for just a minute. Starting now?
There are so many of them, I would be very hard put to it to describe them, but of course, generally they've come under the heading of ballads. Songs my mother taught me comes immediately into my head, but then there is that beautiful Im wunderschönen Morgen Mai. Oh, how often have I thrilled to those beautiful notes.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
On the second beautiful. Or it might have been the third.
Beautiful?
Yes.
Did he say beautiful? Yes, he did say beautiful before. That's right. Yes, you said it. I had to cast my mind back. So, Clement, I agree with the challenge. You gain a point. There are 12 seconds left for songs I love, starting now.
My uncle, who was a musicologist, invented many forms of combinations of notes which, when put together, resulted in chanson lieder.
Derek, will you begin the next round for us? The subject is cowboys and Indians. I'm sure you can talk wonderfully on that. 60 seconds will do, starting now.
Now, I'm going to use this word in its English sense. A cowboy is, in fact, a small child who tends cattle, and not in the American way, when it's really a man. And Indians I will use as inhabitants of that great subcontinent, and not as the indigenous inhabitants of North America. So therefore, I would like to talk to you about cowboys and Indians. In particular, about a little fellow or number of chaps who looked after these 4-legged creatures in a field near County Durham. And there's a little song about them. Where, oh dear.
Oh dear.
Hang on.
So Clement Freud, everybody buzzed then, but Clement Freud's light came on first, so you win the challenge, which we all know is where, oh where. So Clement, you gain a point and you take over the subject. Cowboys and Indians, 20 seconds left, starting now.
In the American continent, on the outback, and also in the Middle West.
Derek Nimmo, why do you challenge?
Hesitation.
Oh, I don't think so, no. 15 seconds left for Clement to continue with Cowboys and Indians, starting now.
It would be wholly unnatural for me to speak more quickly than I normally do, but I will try very hard.
Derek Nimmo, why do you challenge?
Davis, he's being wholly unnatural.
Yes, all right. That's a good challenge, Derek. So I grant it to you. 11 seconds left. Cowboys and Indians, starting now.
And there they came rowing ashore. A lot of people in a row. 57 of them. They landed on the beach, but fortunately for them.
Fortunately for them, they will never discover what happened. Derek gets the extra point for speaking when the whistle went, but he's still only in second place behind Clement Freud. Sheila and Kenneth are trailing a little. Sheila, I'd like you to begin the next round, if you can. Oh gosh, what a subject Ian Nestor has thought up. It's chairing this show. What on earth are they going to say? Sheila Hancock, will you try and talk for just a minute on that subject, starting now?
This is something that all the money in the world and all the Wives!
Derek Newman, why have you challenged?
Hesitation.
Yes.
I think I'm going to be quite different on this round, as it's called chairing this show. I'm going to say, yes, it was a good challenge, but I'm still with Sheila Hancock. I want to hear what she wants to say about chairing the show. You'll get your chance later. What do you want to say about chairing the show, Sheila? You've got another point, by the way. And there are 55 seconds left, starting now.
Nothing in the world would induce me to chair this show. I think it is
Derek Newman, why have you challenged?
Repetition of chair the show.
Yes, well done. Sheila got another point, and 51 seconds left for chairing this show, starting now. Derek Newman, you've challenged.
I thought Sheila might like another point.
And the audience obviously agree with you, so Sheila has another point. And there are 50 seconds for chairing this show, Sheila, starting now.
You have to adjudicate between deviate.
Derek Newman, you have a chance.
There's no such word as adjudicate.
Oh, dear.
Deviate.
It's no
Word
good,
is
Nick. You're fighting a
adjudicate.
losing battle.
But when you're chairing this show, you often get in such a state by the intimidation that occurs from all of you. I make slips exactly like the one Sheila's made. And I thought that was very clever of her to do a vocal demonstration of what I sometimes do. So Sheila has another point, and there's 7 seconds left for chairing this show, starting now.
Between deviation, hesitation, and repetition. When you're dealing with somebody like Derek Newman, obviously it is a very tedious job because he is an extremely bad sport. For instance, he is sitting with his legs up on the desk now, listeners, because he is so upset because I...
Derek Newman, you've challenged. Why?
She's quite rightly calling me a bad sport, but she's not now talking about chairing the show. She's just saying that I'm a really rather rotten loser.
But you could be a rotten loser. Oh, yes, that's right. It's not chairing the show. All right, Derek. I think by the time has come to grant you a point. And also the subject. You tried very hard to get it, and there are 35 seconds left for chairing the show. Derek Nemo starting now.
Unfortunately, this show has never been...
Sheila Hancock's challenge.
I thought Derek would like a point.
I must point out to you all, you've got to be very careful in this game, because while you might give points away in generosity to each other like this, you also might hinder somebody else who is doing very well without playing that sort of game. So, Derek, you continue with chairing the show. There are 34 seconds left, starting now.
Well, if you are chairing this show...
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged yourself.
Might like another point.
So Derek challenged himself, and I disagree with his challenge, so he loses a point.
You can't lose a point. I can stay the same. And I can have the answer back.
No, I disagree with the challenge, so therefore a point is awarded against Derek Nimmo. So that puts him back one. But you keep the subject, and you have chairing the show, Derek Nimmo, 33 seconds left, starting now.
What you really need to chair the show is a man of great intelligence. Unfortunately, we never had this. Also, need a person of humour.
Kenneth Williams has challenged. Why?
Deviation.
Absolutely,
So obviously
absolutely.
and patently untrue.
Absolutely, Kenneth, I quite agree with you. Patently untrue, so Kenneth, you have gained a well-deserved point. And the speed with which you spotted it, too. So you take over the subject of chairing the show, Kenneth. 27 seconds left, starting now.
We are very lucky to be in the hands of such a capable and Daniel come to judgment, I would say, on this show. Indeed.
Clement Freud's challenge, why?
Why didn't he say it?
He has said it. A Daniel come to judgment, I would say, and he just said it, so he had said
That's
it.
repetition, then.
No, it isn't.
You shut your great mouth, I nerve you've got.
Try a bit harder. You might yet get in on the subject. We obviously all want to hear what you want to say about it as well, Clem. But I disagree with that challenge, so Kenneth gains another point, and there are 18 seconds left for chairing the show. Kenneth, starting now.
To keep order all round, to be fair, and yet preserve an atmosphere of light-hearted charm and gaiety. This is no mean feat, and he's got the feet. Every time.
You've challenged.
4 feet.
But his other feat was...
Repetition of
he
feat.
said this was no mean feat, which must have been spelled F-E-A-T.
We don't
And he
know.
said this time he's got the feet, which must have been F-E-E-T.
Well,
Because
then
you
it's
can't say he's
deviation.
got the feet meaning F-E-A-T, can you? So he was using a different kind of feet. And it was a great feat to do it. Do you agree? You agree with my decision, audience? Cheer if you agree with me, boo if you disagree with me. Kenneth Williams, you have another point. There are 2 seconds left for chairing the show, starting now.
And I think it's in the most capable hands in the world.
Well, that last particular round, unfortunately, must be the end of this particular show, but it was a very interesting round, and it also meant that while Clement Froy was in the lead at the beginning and didn't speak throughout it hardly, he still stayed in the lead to the end. But the other three all leapt forward with leaps and bounds, and they're all equal in second place, which is quite an amazing feat, whichever way you spell it. And they're all second to this week's winner, Clement Freud. We do hope that you've enjoyed this particular edition of Just a Minute, and from all of us here, goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The program was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by David Hatch. We present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud, Sheila Hancock in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you very much indeed, and welcome once again to Just a Minute. And as you've just heard, we have once again these four delightful players of the game who are just itching to show you their verbal dexterity and ingenuity. If you heard a little laugh when the announcer introduced the show, it's because they're already in the mood to play and they've been flicking paper darts at each other. May I remind you of the rules? I ask each of them to speak for just a minute if they can on some unlikely subject without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject. If one of the others thinks they're guilty of this, they may challenge them, and according to whether I agree or disagree with the challenge, they will gain or give away points. That's how we play, and let us begin this particular game with Kenneth Williams. Kenneth, will you talk for 60 seconds on something for nothing, starting now?
This is a phrase which sums up, of course, a myth. The thing, in actual fact, doesn't exist, but we imagine very often that we are not going to have to pay a price. We are, of course...
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged. Why?
Well, I thought it was a lingering pause in the middle of it.
Well, it lingered so long, I think one could interpret that as a pause, and therefore you mean hesitation. I agree with your challenge, Derek. Therefore, you gain a point, and you take over the subject, and there are 45 seconds left for something for nothing, starting now.
Due to the gaming rules, it's quite easy to obtain something for nothing if you happen to own a casino, because now the zero, the money from that particular thing, goes to the hut.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Hesitation, particular and thing, and there's a pause between them.
Yes, but it's so difficult to judge. I don't think the pause was as long as yours.
It was.
No, it's very difficult to decide. I think it wasn't...
You are the most partisan person.
One has got to breathe. You cannot be too tough as that, Kenneth. I disagree with your challenge, but I think I must be fair, because I don't think Derek really hesitated, and say that he gains a point because I disagree with the challenge. There are 35 seconds left. Something for nothing, starting now.
Oh, my goodness, it is exacting to get something out for nothing.
Sheila Hancock challenge.
Oh, absolute rubbish.
Absolutely. Rubbish is pure deviation.
Deviation, hesitation, and repetition.
Absolutely.
Do I get 3 points?
I would like to give you 3 points because of the way they try to intimidate you, Sheila, but alas, I can only give you 1. But I can give you the subject, and there are 32 seconds left. Something for nothing, starting now.
A lot of people deplore and say that the young people nowadays want something for nothing. In fact, the young people nowadays are...
Oh, Derek Nimmo, you challenge.
Repeating young people nowadays.
Yes.
That's all right. Well, Derek, you gain another point. You take over the subject, and there are 25 seconds left. Something for nothing, starting now.
There's a clear blue sea beyond the Fair Isles, and there was a seagull floating...
Kenneth Williams, you've challenged.
You hesitate?
I agree with the hesitation this
So do
time,
I.
Kenneth.
Gosh, I really do. And I'm very glad you got the subject.
It is a tough one, isn't it? Right, Kenneth, you have got a point, and you've got the subject back with you. 18 seconds left, something for nothing, starting now.
I call it a myth because we have to pay for everything in this world. There is nothing drops down into your lap.
Sheila Hancock, why have you challenged?
Deviation. Rain, snow, sleet drops down into your lap for nothing.
I hadn't finished.
Oh. Well, I know.
Could you just finish in order to justify...
There's nothing just drops down into your lap without exacting its price.
Well, rain, sleet and snow don't exact
Yeah, of course
the
they
price.
do. They exact their price by making you absolutely soaked to the skin. You get
That's not a price, it's a consequence.
No, I'm sorry. I thought Kenneth was going to say that, but I had to be sure. So, Kenneth, I disagree with Sheila's challenge. You get a point. You keep the subject. 9 seconds left. Something for nothing, starting now.
Of course, there are many people.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Well, I haven't said anything today.
Yes,
Can I
another-
say good evening? Or...
You say whatever you like, and let's
Thank
get on
you.
with the game.
Good.
Clement Freud would like to say good evening to the audience.
No, I've said it.
Are you sure? Wouldn't like to say it again? Well, all that means that Kenneth has got his extra point, and he has 7 seconds left. Something for nothing, starting now.
The same with these rotten old premium bonds introduced to give people the idea. Hard work is the only answer.
When the whistle goes, it tells us that 60 seconds is up.
And I went into the lead. Yes.
Quiet a second, Kenneth. And whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. And this week it was, this particular round, it was Kenneth Williams.
Yes,
And there's no doubt about it, he has stepped into a commanding lead at the end of that
Hooray! Oh, joyful day.
Talking a load of rubbish.
No, it's joyful for me.
round.
Oh,
Yes.
joy.
Well, there's hardly anybody scored anything yet. And it's a very difficult subject to talk about anyway. Derek Nimmo, will you begin the next round? The subject is having my photograph taken. Will you talk for just a minute on that, starting now?
I've only once had my photograph taken. It caused me...
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Deviation. It's had to take millions.
I quite agree.
I'm sorry. I'm talking in the sense of it being stolen.
Well, all right. I let Kenneth justify his remark in the last round. I must allow Derek to justify his in this round. Therefore, I have to disagree with the challenge, give Derek a point, and say there are 56 seconds left for having my photograph taken, starting now.
This particular snapshot I had bought in one of the seamier streets of Port Said. I'd brought it home with me on a long sea voyage, and I kept it in the cupboard.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Repetition.
What?
Brought twice.
What?
No, he bought it in Port Said and brought it home with him.
Well, they sound the same, don't they?
They do, and you're trying very hard, Kenneth. You've got such a commanding lead, you can afford to be
that's
magnanimous in your
true,
challenges.
yeah.
So there we are. All that happens is that Derek gets another point, and there are 47 seconds for having my photograph taken, Derek, starting now.
And into my bedroom one night broke this terrible man with a great big mask on and a striped jumper and a swag bag in his hand. And he tore...
Sheila Hancock, you challenge. Why?
Deviation. It's
Course
not
it is.
true, is it? I mean, they don't walk around with swag bags in their hands, do they?
They might do, but I cannot believe a man would break into his cabin dressed like that to dream into your bedroom in order to steal a simple photograph of Derek Nimmo. There are 39 seconds left for having my photograph taken, Sheila, starting now.
I once had my photograph taken out of the frame in the front of a theatre by a monk in Oxford. This is absolutely true. And he says that now he keeps it in his Bible. He's a very nice man who comes to visit me occasionally. I hate having my photograph snapped because I find that I pull my face into all sorts of funny places. My little girl once...
Derek Nimmo, why have you
You
challenged?
can't pull a face into funny places.
I can't, look.
Putting one bit to Glasgow, another bit to Land's End.
Places, that place.
If you've already used the word shape and you want to find another way to express something similar, and when referring to your face, I can't think of a better way on the spur of the moment to do it and say places.
Oh.
It was a rather clever bit of thinking on
Yes,
Sheila's
fine.
part. So I disagree with the challenge, which means Sheila gets another point, and there are 18 seconds left, having my photograph taken, Sheila, starting now.
When I was at school, we had our pictures taken, and the good lady told us to say the word cheese, and I forgot what she said and said sausages, with the result that I have the most extraordinary photograph of me taken at school. When you're doing...
Clement Roy, why have you challenged?
School.
Yes, there was a repetition of school. So, Clement, you were listening
It
well.
was a different school.
But it was still the same word. So Clement gains a point, and there are 6 seconds left for having my photograph taken, Clement, starting now.
The first thing I do before visiting a photographer is to stand in front of a mirror and comb my hair. This
Well, as Clement Freud was speaking there when the whistle went, he gains that extra point. And Kenneth has a lead still of 1 over Derek, who has a lead of 1 over Sheila, who has a lead of 1 over Clement.
Good Lord, I really...
Yes, isn't it exciting? The audience are agog. Let's get moving. Sheila, will you begin the next round for us? The subject is rose growing. Can you talk about that for just a minute, starting now?
This is something I am peculiarly inept at. Whenever I grow roses, they get white stuff all over and little green flies, whereupon you have to spray them. A good thing to feed roses with is horse manure or mulch. You dig a great big hole round your roses and you put in your stuff.
Clement Freud, you've challenged.
Hesitation.
Hesitation. She was trying to think of another word for manure.
Is there another word for mulch?
Yes, there is. Another
What?
word for manure, but we're not going to have it on this. So you hesitated, quite rightly. Clement Freud picked it up. He gains a point and takes over rose growing, and there are 42 seconds left, starting now.
I remember the child so clearly when she was only 5 years old, skipping around the water meadows, laughing and dancing. And then, when I next came to Lowestoft,
Kenneth and his wife, you challenge.
Deviation. He's talking about this person named Rose, whereas rose growing, we all know, refers to plants.
Well, if it's a child called Rose, she must grow.
Come on.
Don't try and get it that
We've
way,
already
Kenneth.
discussed manure. What are you putting manure on?
Sheila! You've got the audience magnificent on your side, Kenneth. Sheila was discussing manure and her roses. 30 seconds left for Clement Freud to continue on rose growing, starting now.
it was in Yarmouth, 18 years later.
Derek, number wife, you challenged.
I hadn't expected to hear the word later, and I thought it was already in Lowestoft, so I withdraw my challenge.
You can't withdraw a challenge, alas. If you get in too quickly and too keenly, all it means is you give a point away. Clement gains another point, and there are 26 seconds left. Rose growing, starting now.
She was a matron, no less. Mature, 6'3".
Sheila Hancock, why have you challenged?
Deviation. In that case, she's no longer growing.
Yes. Well done.
Brilliant.
You have to be clever to play
A
this
late
game, don't you?
developer.
No, never go back, never go back.
Well tried, Clement. There are 21 seconds left for rose growing, Sheila, starting now.
The reason I would like to succeed in this is I rather fancy the picture of myself in a big straw hat, carrying a pannier and collecting my beautifully grown roses. There are lots of different types. There's Masquerade, there's Ina Sharples, there's a rose...
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Hesitation.
Yes, alas, there was. It's very difficult
the only
to...
two I know.
Peace.
Peace, yes. Peace, peace.
Ina, Harkness, and all the others. Right, so, Clement, you've gained another point, and you have 7 seconds left for rose growing, starting now.
Violet, indigo, heliotrope.
Kenneth Williams, why have you
Because
challenged?
he's discussing violets, whereas the subject is rose growing.
He actually wasn't discussing anything. He just said violet, indigo, and he hadn't got any
We're just
further.
filling in. That's all he was doing, dear. Filling in. He's
I
got
know.
no idea.
And you
that
be-
question rightfully should come back to me. Rightly, but not to me. There's a real right in my
Kenneth.
lap that's supposed to be flung back at me. I
Kenneth,
should have it.
you'll get it in a minute, I can tell you. Nobody can fill in better than you. I disagree with the challenge. I will give you a chance. You've obviously something to say on rose growing. I'll give you a
No, I
chance.
haven't.
Clement Freud gets another point because I disagree with your challenge. There are 5 seconds left for rose growing, Clement, starting now.
Red, yellow, and pink blooms waving in the soft wind. And
Derek, number why have you
We're
challenged?
not talking about rose growing. He's talking about fully developed roses that are blown in the wind. Says deep.
growing.
He's
They were-
talking about roses
Obviously,
that
every day they
They'd come
grow
off
a
in the
little.
wind if they weren't still growing.
Oh, look, they're all being very clever. I'm going to let one of those difficult decisions, because obviously a rose, to be alive, must still be growing. I will let you, audience, be the judge on this one. If you agree with Derek Snimmo's challenge about deviation, will you cheer? If you disagree, will you boo? And will you all do it together now? The cheers had it for the first minute, and the boos had it for the second. So it's a draw. Nobody scores any points, and there are 1 second left for Clement Freud to continue with rose growing, starting now.
They're still getting bigger.
At the end of that round, Clement Freud has leaped from his original place, I don't know where it was now, into the lead, and the other 3 are in second place equal. Clement Freud, will you begin the next round for us? The subject, rather aptly chosen by Ian Messiter for you, is cold. I think you know something about this, but will you talk about it for 60 seconds, starting now?
This is the opposite of warm and a slight improvement on cool. Temperature-wise...
Derek Nimmer, you've challenged.
Hesitation?
Yes, I agree with your challenge. You gain a point and you take over the subject. 57 seconds left, cold, starting now.
I do hate being cold, and on cold January days, I get into my bed, I cover myself with blankets, have a hot water bottle round my tootsies, bed socks on, to keep out this terrible, terrible thing, which I... Repetition.
He's admitted it himself. Clement Freud saw it. You take over the subject, Clement. 43 seconds left, cold, starting now.
I did once have a rather nasty adventure in the Bavarian Alps when I went on a Royal Air Force survival course for the Daily Telegraph magazine.
Kenneth Williams.
Deviations advertising.
He may be advertising, but he wasn't deviating from the subject, you see.
What's the Daily Telegraph got to do with the code?
Because he was writing about cold for the Daily Telegraph at the time. you see. Careful. So anyway, Clement Freud gets another point. 33 seconds left for cold, starting now.
And I got frostbite, and that's all I've got to say.
Derek Nimmer, why have you challenged?
Well, hesitation, he's packed up, isn't he?
So you gain a point and the subject, and there are 30 seconds left for cold, Derek, starting now.
Sometimes, of course, you can catch a nasty cold, which is a nasty virus thing.
Clement Freud, you challenged.
Repetition of nasty.
Of nasty, yes. All right, Clement, you take the subject back with nasty, and 26 seconds left. Cold is the subject starting now.
To which I would like to add one or
Clement
two
Nimmer, you
things.
challenged.
Well, deviation, he's already established they hadn't got anything more to say about it.
I think I must give you a bonus point for cleverness, but leave the subject with him, because even if he's got nothing else to say about it, he must, in this game, try and continue.
Yes, well, then it must be repetitious if he's already said it.
No, I've given you a point. I'm not going to give you 2 points. Derek, you've got a point. The subject's still with Clement. 19 seconds left, cold, starting now.
I have seen people freeze, not to death, but to a state...
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Deviation, because freezing is not... Well, the subject is cold. You're cold, you're not freezing. Freezing is another stage entirely. So it's deviation.
You've got to be,
It would be at least cool to freeze. I mean, you know.
before you freeze, you've got to be cold first, haven't you?
Oh, you're giving it to him again, are you?
Let him. Clement, would you like to give it to Kenneth? Because
Yes.
he's a bit frozen in
Yes.
the corner there. And I think it's only fair that he because he's tried very hard and he only just failed.
He's done very well.
You've done very well, yes. So there are 18 seconds left for you, Kenneth, on cold, starting now.
I got this cold and all my sinuses became inflamed. And they said to me,
Derek
your
Nimmer,
nose
why
will
have
have to
you
come off. They said, the whole nose will have to come off.
Wait a
They
minute,
actually said that-
before your nose does come off, can I find out why Derek Nimmer challenged you?
Well, sinuses.
Why? What about them?
Well, it's an improper use of the word.
Well, it doesn't matter if you use the word improperly. You've got to keep going, and you might use a word improperly, but it still conveys to the audience and the listeners exactly what he meant, so it's not deviating from the subject.
Right.
So Kenneth gets another point, and he continues with the subject. 13 seconds left, cold, starting now.
And I went to the specialist and he said, have it off. He said, that's the only thing for you. He said, tracheotomy, tracheotomy.
Clement Freud, you've challenged.
Repetition.
Yes.
He's dying to get that sound. Didn't he?
Tracheotomy. It's your style, isn't it? Tracheotomy, he said. All right, Clement, you get a point. You take the subject back for 6 seconds, cold, starting now.
And I snuffled and spoke like this, and it was terribly difficult for people to understand what I was saying.
Well, Clement Freud, giving that demonstration of how he normally speaks, gives him an extra point because he was speaking when the whistle went, and he now has a very commanding lead over the other 3. Kenneth Williams, will you begin the next round? The subject, rather delightfully and strangely, is just Tuesday. Can you talk about it for 60 seconds, starting now?
The child of that day is said to be fair of face. I, of course, being born on a Tuesday, bear that out. You must admit, Admiral.
Sheila, what was your challenge?
Well, no, because it's cruel. I was going to say I don't admit it, but he is quite pretty, so he can have it.
Oh, well, isn't that nice of her? She thinks you're very pretty, and giving you your prettiness has gained you a point, Kenneth. And you keep the subject, and there are 37 seconds for Tuesday, starting now.
Also, in the lyric of a song, it says that that day will be my good news day.
Derek Nimmer, why do you challenge?
Repetition of day.
Yes, we've had rather a lot of days. No, it
But in
wasn't
the
just...
song Newsday is hyphenated.
Yes, but you've used the word
No, the
again.
Tuesday will be like a Newsday. So it's hyphenated, you see?
I agree
We'll
with
build a little home.
Don't try and get out of it, Kenneth. I've given the thing to Derek. There are 24 seconds left, Derek, for Tuesday starting now.
Of course, my favourite Tuesday is the pancake one. I think that's great fun, don't you, really? When you put into your little saucepan or frying pan the batter and toss it up...
Clement, you challenge.
Pan.
Pan. Repetition of pan. Clement, I agree. 20 seconds left for Tuesday starting now.
Saturday night is the loneliest night of the week because that is the night that my sweetheart and I used to dance.
Sheila
cheek to
Hancock, why have you
cheek.
challenged?
I don't
Deviation,
like
he's talking
Sunday
about
at all.
Saturday.
I tried to-
That is the night my friends and my family all come
quiet,
together.
dear.
A
Monday to
long time
Friday
ago,
go-
Clement Freud, Sheila Hancock challenged and gained a point, and there are 15 seconds left for Sheila to continue with Tuesday starting now.
Next Tuesday, I'm getting up at 9 o'clock in the morning, taking my little girl to school, and then at 10 o'clock, a friend of mine is coming round for coffee. We will have a nice long talk.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Terribly boring.
Oh, if you were the friend who was going round on Tuesday, it could be very exciting. But it's
All
not
that
a-
wait while the children went off.
But either way you look at it, it is still not deviating from the subject. So Sheila gains another point, keeps the subject. 6 seconds left. Tuesday starting now.
We usually talk about our sex lives and our friends, and then at lunchtime...
Derek, number why have you challenged?
Well, knowing Sheila's sex life, that's devious.
Now...
Don't allow that, Nick. Don't allow that, Nick.
Don't tell me how to do
No,
my job. A horrid,
stand
cruel,
by
and
that girl,
ungallant
Nick.
challenge, which without any doubt gained Sheila an... I think I should give her a bonus point.
Yes,
So
Nick.
do I.
Quite right.
So do I.
So, and there are 2 seconds left for Tuesday, Sheila, starting now.
Then 3 more friends come to lunch, and we...
I did think her Tuesday getting a bit devious then, though, didn't you? Anyway, Sheila, you have now leaped into second place alongside Kenneth and Derek, who are all trailing behind our leader still, Clement
You're
Freud.
trailing, you're trailing.
But he's trailing in good company. And she begins the next round, memorizing names, Sheila. Can you talk about that for just a minute, starting now?
Many years ago, I was lucky enough to be in a show with a venerable lady called Athene Seiler, and she taught me a little trick which I now am old enough to use. That was... Derek Nimmo's pushing me off.
Clement Freud, you've challenged.
Deviation.
Why do you think it was devious?
She got away from her subject and talked about taking...
Yes,
We're trying to show his airy chest, that's all.
Derek, can you continue? So, are you quite comfortable? I must tell the listeners, Derek Nimmo is undressing. It's amusing the audience. It's completely put Sheila off
Of
her
course it
style.
has, of course it has. I'm not used to this sort
A
of
button
behaviour.
has burst off his shirt.
Devious though my sex life may be, I'm not used to being on panel games where gentlemen
Derek,
sit.
will you put your tie in your pocket, please?
No, thank you.
Be a good boy. Now, are you quite composed again, Sheila?
Yes.
But there are 47 seconds left for memorizing names, starting now.
And this lady told me that the thing to do when you forgot somebody's name was to say, I am so old, help me. I always make a habit of when I'm introducing myself.
Clement
to
Freud, why have
people.
you challenged?
Repetition.
What of?
Always making a habit.
Oh,
Yes,
come
yes.
off.
Did I say that before?
Yes, you did actually say I always make a habit.
She didn't.
I did.
She didn't.
She didn't.
He's saying that is repeating. Always make a habit. He said
Oh,
that
I
to you.
understand. All right, you're just... It is. It's wonder, Sheila. Look, stop it trying to set up the whole thing. All right, Sheila has another point, and the subject is memorizing names, and there are 37 seconds left, Sheila, starting now.
Having great trouble in that direction myself, I introduce myself very firmly, even to my own mother and my own husband. I feel it's only fair that you should establish clearly who you are. Then they don't have
Kenneth
the
Williams, why do
difficulty
you
of
tell?
Deviation.
memorizing
I've seen her
names.
meet her mum, and she doesn't never say, I'm Sheila Hancock. But her mum knows.
She might wish to, even as a joke, so she has not technically deviated from the subject on the card.
Oh, let him have it. I can't think of anything more to say.
Alas, Sheila, you've still got it, and there are 27 seconds left for memorizing names, starting now.
Nicholas Parsons, Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud, Derek Taylor, John...
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Repetition of Derek.
Yes, we've had far too many days.
Well, I happen to know a lot of
Clement
Dereks.
Freud, I agree with your challenge. You take a point and the subject, and there are 19 seconds left. Memorizing names, starting now.
I once read a book on this very subject, which was written by a hairy Polish gentleman.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Deviation. He didn't know the author, therefore he could never have known he was hairy or not.
Absolutely right. He couldn't have known the author of the book. So the subject is with you, Kenneth, and there are 13 seconds left. Memorizing names starting now.
Whenever they say to you, "You know me," you should always say, "Well, of course I do, and how's Muriel?" That is the only way to appear au fait apropos the remembering of names, unless you do it in a sort of penmanship.
Well, Kenneth Williams was speaking when the whistle went then, so he gains that extra point.
And now I've gone to the lead.
No. You're in a very commanding third place, Kenneth. Derek is just behind you. Clement Freud is ahead of you. And 1 point ahead of Clement Freud is this week's winner. The person at the beginning of the show said, "I don't care because I never win." But this week she has Sheila Hancock. Well, we do hope you've enjoyed this particular edition of Just a Minute, and from all of us here, goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The program was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by David Hatch. Present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud, and Sheila Hancock in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you very much indeed. Hello. Welcome once again to Just a Minute, and once again it's my pleasure to welcome these 4 delightful and beautiful players of the game, who of course need no introduction to you all here in the audience and the listeners at home. Once again, the rules are as before. I'm going to ask each one of them to speak in turn, if they can, for 60 seconds on some unlikely subject, without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject. And one of the other 3 may challenge if they think they're guilty of doing this. If I agree with the challenge, they will gain a point, and if I disagree with the challenge, a point will go to whoever is speaking. That's the way we play, and Sheila Hancock, will you begin this round for us? The subject is the little people. Would you talk for a minute on that, starting now?
Being 5'7.5" in my bare feet, I hate little people. When I stand next to a little person...
Derek Nimmo has challenged. Why?
Prejudice.
It's a very nice idea, Derek, but alas, it has got nothing to do with the subject, and therefore it is not a correct deviation. Sheila has a point, and there are 53 seconds left for the little people. Sheila, starting now.
The reason being, when I stand next to one of the little people, I feel tall and gawky and nasty. I want to smash the illusion that little people are frail and don't quite know how to cope with life. In fact, little people like Kenneth Williams...
Clement Freud, you've challenged. Why?
4 little people.
Yes, we do allow people to repeat the subject matter on the card once or twice, maybe 3 times, but not 4 times. So, Clement Freud, you take over the subject of the little people with 41 seconds left, starting now.
If you were to walk into the peat bogs of County Connemara, you would invariably encounter someone with green ears or pointed head.
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged.
Deviation. You wouldn't invariably encounter one. I've never met one. I'm always in the bogs.
Well, don't let's get filthy. This is one of those occasions where obviously I must put it to the audience. Do you think, audience, that if you were to go to the peat bogs of Connemara, you might invariably meet one of the little people? If you do, will you cheer? And if you don't think so, will you boo? And will you all do it together now? They don't think you invariably meet the little people in the bogs of Connemara. So, Derek Nimmo, you gain the subject and a point, and 31 seconds left for the little people, starting now.
I once played in a pantomime at Chiswick Empire with 17 German dwarfs. It was New Year's Eve, and I invited them back to my caravan, and I gave them ordinary size glasses of gin and tonic. Whereupon...
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Deviation. You couldn't possibly get 16 dwarfs into a caravan.
Actually, it's totally true, actually.
Well, I should think,
All I do is
actually.
challenge.
I think
What
it
was
must...
the pantomime?
What was the pantomime? Let us just deviate too much. I think it must be extremely uncomfortable, and especially with giving them large glasses of gin or whatever it was he gave them. But strictly speaking, he hasn't deviated from the subject, Kenneth, so well tried. Derek Nimmo keeps the subject, gains another point, and there are 20 seconds left for the little people starting now.
They became intoxicated very rapidly, which surprised me. And one called Rudolph.
Clement Freud, why did you challenge?
Deviation, why should it surprise you? You give a dwarf a huge drink.
I think that's a very clever and justified challenge. Clement Freud, you say that I'm not fair. I think I'm being abundantly fair to you. Get another point. You have 16 seconds left for the little people, starting now.
Walking down Oxford Street, I once encountered a raggle-taggle queue of minute gentlemen, and I went up to their leader and said, would you kindly introduce me to your wife, because I'm most interested in meeting more people like you. You are the sort of people...
Oh. He was very lucky. He said people just as the whistle went, and as he was speaking when the whistle went, Clement Freud gets that extra point. I wish, listeners, you could have seen the look on his face. He didn't know what on earth he was talking about. It was a very clever way, shows you how clever is the game, just keeping going and saying words which make sense, but don't really have anything to do with anything in particular. Well done, Clement, and... Clement, will you begin the next round for us? The subject is jumbo jets. Can you talk about that for 60 seconds, starting now?
A jumbo jet has been described as Rhode Island taking off, and it is in fact a huge aeroplane. And what...
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged.
Hesitation.
Hesitation. The first hesitation of this particular show. I agree, you get a point, Derek. And there are 51.5 seconds left for jumbo jets, Derek, starting now.
It was a moment of tremendous...
You don't need to say, Clement, you get the subject back on the same challenge and a point. And there are 50 seconds left for jumbo jet, starting now.
Advertising this plane at the moment is a campaign saying, look big, long legs, fly jumbo, which is an awful insult to the little people. You can imagine Henri Toulouse-Lautrec going to London Airport, for instance, and seeing this message.
Sheila Hancock, why have you challenged?
Deviation. There weren't aeroplanes when Toulouse-Lautrec was alive.
He did actually say you can imagine.
Oh, well,
that
he
she's
might,
the
but I can't.
So, as he wasn't strictly deviating from the subject, bad luck, Sheila, I must be fair and keep it with Clement Freud, with 35 seconds left for jumbo jets, starting now.
What is sad about jumbo jets is that they're very large and very difficult to service. So the cabin staff, who are in front...
Kenneth Williams, why do you challenge?
The fact that the aeroplane is large is not sad. It's just a fact. It's just a fact. It's large.
Agree.
Well,
yes,
it's
I quite
deviation.
agree.
Deviation.
Yes, you
Deviation.
When Clement Freud was said someone it was surprised and he wasn't, I let Clement Freud have it. I will let you have it because it is not sad. No, I quite agree. You have a point and you have the subject, Kenneth, with 27 seconds for jumbo jets, starting now.
The title, of course, owes its origin to the hugeness of the animal after whom it...
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Animal.
Don't be rude. We're not. We're
I take it back.
You take it back.
Yes.
You're too late now. You've given it away.
Yes, sir.
Kenneth
I
Williams
want
has
Kenneth
another
to have
point.
his point.
It is a jumbo is a child's name for an animal. So Kenneth, you carry on. 21 seconds left for jumbo jets. Start. Don't be intimidated by Clement Freud, even though he's sitting next to you. You persevere. 21 seconds, Kenneth. Jumbo jets starting now.
And it also shares another characteristic of that creature, because they are famous for never forgetting. And this aeroplane is famous in the same...
Derek Neville, why do you challenge?
Repetition of fame.
There was a repetition of famous, alas.
Oh, well, I was having a go.
Well, you had a very good go, but Derek has a point, and he has 8 seconds left for jumbo jet starting now.
I once went to the Elephant House in Regent Park Zoo, and there I got a great jumbo jet right in my face, because I...
You challenge.
Deviation. I mean, obviously, if he had a jumbo jet in his face, he wouldn't be here today.
Well, we've only got to believe he got it, he's still here today, so, seeing is believing, and alas, no, he hasn't deviated from the subject. So he gets another point, and 4 seconds left for jumbo jets, Derek, starting now.
And I was terribly wet, and I went round to the man with the look after the elephant, and he gave me a bun, and I said, thank you very much for the bun. This is very kind of you to say.
I'm sorry
thank
you've
you.
been
And
challenged. You're being challenged. You had another jumbo jet in your ear hole then.
Hesitation.
Hesitation. You...
Hesitation! I never talk so rapidly in my life.
I know you talk so rapidly that some of the people actually missed the sort of that occurred, which Clement Freud picked up. So I must be fair and give the subject to him with 1 second left on jumbo jets, Clement, starting now.
First come.
And Derek Nimmo is challenged. Why do you challenge?
Well, deviation. You couldn't possibly talk about jumbo jets in 1 second.
Well, as it's neck and neck, I will give Clement the points for speaking when the whistle went, and Derek a bonus point for a clever challenge. All right, that's only a fair way to do it, I think. And they're both equal, you see. It keeps the thing neck and neck at the end of that round. Derek Nimmo and Clement Freud. Kenneth, will you begin the next round for us? A subject, I'm sure, entirely up your
About time
street.
I had something to say.
Well, I know you're going to flow eruditely on this one.
Yes.
Bernard Shaw. Would you speak for 60 seconds on him, starting now?
It is not generally known that this very...
Clement Freud, you've challenged.
Well, it's ridiculous you can't speak eruditely on Bernard Shaw for 1 minute.
You listen to Kenneth Williams. He's got another point.
I want to...
And there are 53 seconds
Isn't
left.
that a clever challenge? It was a clever challenge just now.
You didn't make it before.
Kenneth Williams, you have 53 seconds for Bernard Shaw, starting now.
He wrote several novels, a half dozen actually, before he achieved any success, and that was not with the same thing. It was, of course, with playwriting, and during his period as an alderman of the vestry of St. Pancras, he was up 6:30 in the morning to write.
Sheila Hancock, you have challenged.
Oh, it's deviation. I don't believe he was...
He was the alderman of the vestry, yes he was. Bernard Shaw was.
The alderman of the vestry of St.
Yes.
Pancras up at 6:30.
Yes, he was.
I don't know what
What
you're
is
challenging on.
the-
I'd like to know, Sheila, are you challenging on the fact he got up at 6:30 or that he was an alderman of the vestry?
Deviation. I don't think Bernard Shaw ever got up at 6:30.
Which platform?
I'm sure he many times got up at 6:30. He was
She
also
don't know
an alderman of the
nothing for
vestry.
nothing anyway.
Well, what have you challenged for, Derek?
Nothing from nothing, really.
It's nothing from nothing. Sheila, Kenneth Williams has a point because he was an alderman of the vestry, and the 35 seconds left for Bernard Shaw, Kenneth, starting now.
Began so early in the morning that even Mrs. Patrick Campbell was heard to exclaim, "Your eyes are so far apart, I think I'll have to take a taxi." She had to do that. Then, of course, came the great success of Pygmalion, which, as we all know, took London audiences by surprise when that famous epithet was uttered, not something like... Well, I won't say it.
Sheila Hancock, you challenged. Why?
Deviation. It wasn't not something
No,
like
but I
it.
wasn't saying the word because it's rude.
Well, if you lead yourself into that impossible situation, Kenneth, I'm afraid you'll lose a point, or at least the other way around. Sheila, for challenging...
I was just trying to behave like a gentleman, that's all.
Well, we all suffer in this game. I mean, Clement's smarting because I gave a jumbo jet in 1 second to Derek Nimmo. He'll be upset in a minute because I've given something to Clement for
I won't
You're
be.
upset at the moment. Sheila Hancock is not upset at the moment because she has the subject, and there are 9 seconds left for Bernard Shaw. Sheila, starting now.
One of the things this gentleman was famous for was his correspondences with various actresses. Ellen Ted.
Clement Freud challenged. Hesitation, yes. Everybody challenged at once, but Clement Freud's light went on first, so he gains the point and the subject. 4 seconds. Bernard Shaw, Clement, starting now.
Bernard Shaw said that if you hit yourself on the head with a book and...
Clement Freud...
It was a nice thing that he said. I just thought they ought to hear.
Yes, I'm sure there must. I mean,
Yes.
we'd all love to hear it. Yes.
Shaw said if you hit yourself on the head with a book and perceive a hollow sound, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's nothing in the book.
Sheila Hancock, it's your turn to begin the next round. The subject is keeping the peace. Can you talk about that for 60 seconds, starting now?
This is something upon which I am an expert. At home, I have a cupboard full of pieces of crockery, and it is a result of having kept the peace when I've broken something, with the idea that eventually I should mend it. One day, I'm going to put all these pieces together and make one huge pot of different assorted fragments. Another way of keeping the peace is between children when they are squabbling, and the thing to do is to lock one in the lavatory and one in the outhouse, and not say anything to them. And backstage, before we come on, Clem Freud does a good job between Kenneth Williams and I. But we are inclined to come to blows. However, I love him very much, and in the end, I don't hurt him, because he is a nice little fella. I have also...
Clement Freud, you're
Hesitation.
the most ungallant challenge
Yes,
of
you're
the show.
so right.
Alas, as chairman, I have to be fair and say it was a hesitation. So Clement Freud has a point and takes the subject with 8 seconds left for keeping the peace, starting now.
Keeping the peace is something I used to do a great deal when I was a Boy Scout. I was a peewit, and my best...
Derek Nimmer, why have you challenged?
Deviation, peewit.
Why?
Well, it's deviation.
I thought he might have been a brownie or something, which, not a brownie, I mean, a cub, and his troop might have been the Peewits, were they?
Yes, yes.
Well, look, I'm afraid there seems to be a great feeling of disbelief here. If you think that Clement
No, I was a
Freud...
peewit. I mean, you know...
He actually, come to think of it, he does look rather like a peewit.
So you are now conceding
On my
that
Scout's honour, yes.
on his Scout's honour, he's told us that he was a Peewit once. So there we are. Clement, you keep the subject and another point, and you have 2 seconds left for keeping the peace, starting now.
We marched onto Hampstead Heath bearing...
Keeping the peace and Peewits and the whistle going as he was speaking gained Clement Freud 2 more points. And Clement, it's your turn to begin the next round. The subject is the perfect breakfast. Will you speak about that for 60 seconds, starting now?
Ideally, the perfect breakfast should follow the perfect dinner. On the morning after the meal, you arise...
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Hesitation.
Yes, I quite agree. He was searching for his perfect breakfast. So, Kenneth, you have a point and the subject with 52.5 seconds left for the perfect breakfast, starting now.
Taken in a thoroughly relaxed atmosphere, it should begin with cereals and fresh, clear, cool milk. And then, of course, the deviled kidneys. What could be more delectable than see that plate full of these fried eggs and crisp bacon. The aroma itself, oh, it really gets me going. I'm throbbing there when I smell it, you know. And the crisp toast, of course.
Clement Freud, you challenge, why?
Crisp.
Yes, we've had crisp before. We had crisp bacon, now we've got crisp toast. I must say it was an object lesson, Kenneth, in how to keep going without stopping and making
Well, I
your
was trying
work.
to elongate me vowel.
I know you, and you achieved it too, so
I was
elongated.
hanging it out a bit. I must admit.
Anyway. But you couldn't have 2 crisps. So, Clement has a point and the subject, the perfect breakfast. 17 seconds left, starting now.
A kipper fillet is something that one should not be without. Ideally, the herring is smoked over chips of oak, hung up in a chimney, and they're then taken down after...
Derek, why have you challenged?
Well, he's describing how to cook a kipper or smoke a cure a kipper, but not talking about a perfect breakfast.
Yeah, that's true. That's
So
very
therefore it's
true.
deviation.
It's very difficult because, you see, he did establish he was going to have this particular food for his breakfast. And he went on to say how he felt it would be most perfectly done. So he wasn't really deviating from the subject. I will put this one definitely to the audience. If you think that Clement Freud was deviating and you agree with Derek's challenge, will you cheer? If you disagree with his challenge, will you boo? And will you all do it together now? Equal. No points scored. Clement Freud continues with the subject. 4 seconds to go for the perfect breakfast, starting now.
Haddock is also essential.
Derek, you've challenged.
Well, deviation, because they can't both be essential. Kipper and haddock.
I don't think they're both
It's a perfect
essential.
breakfast, you wouldn't have 2 fish balls.
No,
Two fish balls. The perfect
The perfect breakfast?
Yes.
in your opinion, but not in Derek Nimmo's, and I have to make the judgment. And in this case, I give it to Derek Nimmo. 1 second left, Derek, starting now.
Grapefruit juice and croissant.
Sheila Hancock's challenge.
It isn't possible deviation to talk about the perfect breakfast in 1 second.
Exactly, so you've got a point. All right, we have established that. I'm going to do that. I did it before, so Sheila
only have
Hancock has a
grapefruit
point,
juice.
and there's half a second left for the perfect breakfast, Sheila, starting now.
I
And Sheila will speak as the whistle blows. Clement Freud is still in the lead in this needle match, and Kenneth Williams is going to begin the next round, and the subject is fibs, I have told. You are looking very nonplussed. You obviously want a second to think. You've had your second. Will you go on fibs, I have told, Kenneth, starting now?
There are so many that I would really be hard put to it to single out one instantly.
Clement Freud, why have you chosen?
For a number of reasons. Hesitation.
Rubbish, what's
Comes-
hesitation? There's no hesitation there.
You went as slow as it's possible to
Well, that's
go
not
without coming...
hesitation.
I know, but there must come a time when you cannot elongate your vowels to such an extent.
And leave it hanging out.
Where does elongation not become important? All right, I will
felt
do it.
the
I will
vowel
do it this way.
hanging out.
Out of fairness, I will say, if you elongate any more than that, it'll be hesitation next time. Please carry on. With fibs, I have told, not to elongated vowels. 52 seconds, starting now.
A notable one was when I was being attacked by a huge burly brute in Ceylon. All right, I said, hit me if you want to hit a man with plastic legs. Well, he drew back, obviously surprised, and he obviously too felt. Oh, obviously.
Don't hit Clement Freud. Derek Nimmo challenged you first. No, Derek. Yes, a repetition of obviously. Derek, you take over the subject of fibs, I have told, but there are 34 seconds left, starting now.
I once told a fisherman in Norfolk that I was the Duke of Somerset. This surprised him, and he took me out for a long sail in his ship. And I got onto the boat, and the most extraordinary thing happened. The wind blew up.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Deviation. He's begun with a ship and has now become a boat.
You can't repeat it.
What was that?
You can't repeat the thing.
No, you can't repeat it. And after all,
It could have been a vessel. For a ship to
then
become
you'll
a
say,
boat.
why is his ship became a vessel? Sometimes, you know, sometimes real seagoing people do refer to their ships as boats. And I've heard them even talk about the Queen Elizabeth as a boat. So this is shipping parlance, and
I
I
thought it
therefore...
was a very good challenge of Kenneth.
I know you did, because you're on his side, and you're only 1 point. You're equal with Derek Nimmo, so it's a needle match, and it's very difficult to judge, especially when you try to brown me. Derek, I'm with you. You gain a point, and there are 19 seconds left for fibs, I have told, starting now.
Going into a greengrocer's in Halifax, I said, are those peas? And the man said, why do you say that? When you see quite obviously they're beans. I said, I want to tell you a fib. He said, why? Now, I said, it's curious that you should ask me this, because as I was wandering along the street, round the corner, 2 but 4 from the left, I thought, why can't I go?
As Derek was speaking then, when the whistle went, he gains another point, and he has a lead of 1 at the end of that round over Clement Freud, and Sheila and Kenneth are in 3rd place together. Derek, it's your turn to begin the next round, and the subject is what I shall leave out of my autobiography. And I can tell you right away, I'll leave a few of those fibs out for a start. Anyway, 60 seconds starting now.
I shall leave out from my autobiography any suggestions.
Sheila Hancock, your challenge.
Whatever, hesitation,
Yes, I'm
autobiography.
afraid it's probably going to be the last round, and obviously all going to be tough, so I have to be tough with you here, Derek. Sheila has a point. There are 55 seconds left for what I shall leave out of my autobiography, Sheila, starting now.
I shall definitely leave out my early life, because it is the part of a biography that I always skip. I find it...
Derek, number why have you challenged?
Well, the subject is autobiography, not biography.
Did she say biography?
Yes, I
She said
did.
biography.
Yes, I did.
British deviation, still correct.
All right, he can have it, because I don't want to say what I'm
it's
going to do.
it's still not deviating from the subject.
Well, it's a different subject. An autobiography is written by the person who
Yes, but she
lived
might
the
have been
life.
going on to say what I shall leave out of my biography has got nothing to do with what I shall leave out of my autobiography. We don't know. I mean, it's not actually deviating
say
from
that.
the subject. She didn't say it, but we weren't to know.
But I was talking...
Sheila has a point, and there are 47 seconds left for what I shall leave out of my autobiography, Sheila, starting now.
I shall also definitely definitely leave out the fact that I played in a game called Just a Minute, because sometimes it got very ugly. People like Derek Nimmo were incredibly cruel to me.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Deviation.
Why?
There are no people like Derek Nimmo.
I'm sure in this world there's some charming, there's some delightful people, there's some intelligent people. They may not all have it in the same package as Derek Nimmo, but there must be some people like Derek Nimmo. So Sheila has another point, and she continues with what I shall leave out of my autobiography. 39 seconds left, starting now.
In fact, I shall be pretty hard pushed to find anything that I can put in my autobiography. I may put the incident when...
Clement Freud, you've challenged.
Hesitation.
Yes, she did actually hesitate, and I was tough before, so I'll have to be tough again, Sheila. I'm sorry. 17 seconds for what I shall leave out of my autobiography, starting now.
I shall not mention Londonderry and all the...
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, I agree. 12 seconds left, starting now.
I shall leave out of my autobiography the time that I spent in a monastery in Cyprus, because there I found out all sorts of extraordinary things about the sacred mushroom. There they were...
Well, I'm afraid that is all we have time for in this particular game of Just a Minute. As you realize, it was a needle match, because 1 minute Derek was leading Clement by a point, and then a minute or second or two later, it was the reversed. Well, at the final spurt, Derek got that extra point when the whistle went on that last subject, so it gives him a lead of 1. So by 1 point over Clement Freud in second place, Sheila Hancock and Kenneth Williams equal in third place. Our winner this week by 1 point, Derek Nimmo. I would say it was almost a moral draw, because they were so neck and neck. Anyway, we do hope you've enjoyed this particular edition of Just a Minute, and from all of us here, goodbye.
Chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The program was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by David Hatch. Present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud, and Sheila Hancock in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you very much indeed. Hello. Welcome once again to Just a Minute, and once again it's my pleasure to welcome these 4 delightful and beautiful players of the game, who of course need no introduction to you all here in the audience and the listeners at home. Once again, the rules are as before. I'm going to ask each one of them to speak in turn, if they can, for 60 seconds on some unlikely subject, without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject. And one of the other 3 may challenge if they think they're guilty of doing this. If I agree with the challenge, they will gain a point, and if I disagree with the challenge, a point will go to whoever is speaking. That's the way we play, and Sheila Hancock, will you begin this round for us? The subject is a nice cup of tea. Would you talk for a minute on that, starting now?
When I was very young, the first song that I remember my mother singing to me was, I like a nice cup of tea in the morning, and a nice cup of tea at night, and at 11:30.
Derek Nimmo has challenged. Why?
Well, your mother was repeating herself.
Well, that's my mother's fault, not mine.
What was she repeating, Derek?
A nice cup of tea.
A nice cup of tea is the actual subject matter.
What is the subject matter?
Derek Nimmo, the subject matter on the card is a nice cup of
Oh, well,
tea.
never mind.
And we have established in this game that you can repeat the subject matter at least
Yes,
2 or 3
of course
times.
you can.
So, Derek Nimmo, I disagree with your challenge. Don't try and get out of it by pretending you're being frightfully magnanimous, because all that happens is Sheila Hancock gains a point, because I disagree with your challenge, and if you don't shut up, you'll lose another point. And there are 47 seconds left, Sheila, for a nice cup of tea, starting now.
And at 11:30, my idea of heaven is the thing that Derek Nimmo says I mustn't say. I like
a nice cup of tea first thing when I wake up in the morning, and I give one to my mother and the dog.
Derek, Clement Freud, you've challenged. Why?
We've repeated mother.
When
Mother
did
started and
Mother
she's
was
just
there.
come
She
back in
caught the
again.
song in the first bit.
Yes, that's right, she did. Mother has come back in again.
She
Yes,
raised
so-
her ugly
I
head.
thought she had a nice singing voice.
But alas, we can't have a repetition of Sheila's mother in this particular show because she can't say it more than once. I agree with your challenge, Clement. You gain a point, you take over the subject, and there are 25 seconds left for a nice cup of tea, starting now.
There are many who think that the nicest of all possible cups of tea is lemon tea served with ice. And this should be sweetened not with sugar, but with a syrup made by using the...
Kenneth Williams, you've challenged. Oh, well.
By using the...
He did hesitate at one point. No, it's unfair to ask
I
you
admit
where.
it.
Yes, I know.
You're a sport. You're a sport.
No, he did hesitate there. Kenneth, you take the subject over of a nice cup of tea, and there are 8 seconds left, starting now.
I am often referred to as a nice cup of tea. And
Clement Freud, you've challenged.
Hesitate?
He was waiting for the audience laughter to
You've
die
got-
down,
you
which is
can't talk back
entirely
from
justified.
Now,
Don't...
Good gracious, it's disobeying one's natural instinct.
Well, don't show the other natural instincts by stripping at this present moment, Kenneth.
Well, it's so hot. Just take that. It's so decollete. You know what I mean?
I don't know what you feel. But would you keep the nice cup of tea that you've established you already are? Maybe that's why you were stripping. Anyway, there are 2 seconds left for you to carry on with your nice cup of tea.
2 seconds?
2 seconds, that's all.
Hello.
That's all, and he's going to start now.
One for me and one for the pot and put the tea over.
Yes, go on. Go on, tell him who's in the lead. Go on, tell him who's in the lead.
Just contain yourself for a minute, because I do want we might have somebody who's never heard the program before and would like to know that whistle was blown by Ian Messiter, who thought of the game.
Oh, they're not interested in him. Tell him who's in the lead.
And they would definitely like to know that whistle tells us that 60 seconds is up.
Yeah, but tell him who's in the lead.
And I'm sure it's very important that they should know that whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. And I'm sure they'll be fascinated to hear that at the end of that first round, Kenneth Williams has a commanding lead.
Oh, victory, joy.
Keep it up, Kenneth, keep it up. You have a lead of 2 over everybody else. And the next subject could not be more apt. We want you to begin it, Kenneth.
Yes.
It's sensationalism.
Oh.
Yes, that's shattered you a little, hasn't it? Well, sensationalism, it's almost too difficult to say, isn't it? Sensationalism, 60 seconds, starting now.
This is something which newspapers are famous for. Banner headlines proclaim a sensation, and people rush to buy a copy, finding out what this sensation is about.
Clement Freud, you're challenged.
Repetition.
Of what?
Sensation.
Absolutely right. Yes, we must establish what it was. I agree with the challenge, Clement. You gain a point. You take
Wasn't
over
it
the
the
subject.
title?
No.
43 seconds left, starting now.
Sensationalism is the tray, T-R-A-I, and the first letter repeated, of using the sort of standing out
Kenneth
events.
Williams, your challenge.
Well, it was hesitation.
It was hesitation,
hesitation.
yes. He was showing off. T-R-A-I, and first letter repeated, and then he paused. Right. Kenneth, you take over the subject, having gained another point. 32 seconds left. Sensationalism, starting now.
I know people that like it done to them with feathery fingers.
Sheila Hancock has challenged.
Deviation.
Yes, but he hasn't deviated from
He
the...
will if you give him a chance.
Well, Sheila, all I can say is you must give him that chance, because he
Oh,
hasn't
dear.
deviated from the subject
Will be
of the
taken off
card.
the air if you let him go on, be it on your own head.
Well, it must be on my head then, because I must play the rules, and this is deviation from the subject. He hasn't done that yet, so Kenneth has another point, and there are 28 seconds left for sensationalism, starting now.
They like to be tickled. This results in sensationalism. Sensationalism means for its own sake, you see, as opposed to something which is an unexpected surprise apropos of quite another. I could slip open that very quickly to be the
Clement Freud, you've challenged.
Well, deviation.
The lot.
The lot.
No, there was deviation. We don't know what you were talking about. He's setting up you, Clement Freud has a point. He takes over the subject. 9 seconds left. Sensationalism starting now.
Blindfolded chimpanzee locked in bubble car.
Kenneth and his wife who challenge.
There is nothing sensational about chimpanzees being blindfolded. I've done it frequently. It's such an everyday occurrence.
Well, all I can say, you
Ludicrous,
should be ashamed of the sensationalism that you are likely to cause by doing it. Clement Freud has another point, and he keeps the subject, and there are 5 seconds left, starting now.
You're never alone is a headline which you might frequently...
I'm sure you'll agree, listeners, that some of the subjects that Ian Messler thinks up are very difficult for me to adjudicate on. I hope I do it fairly. But now at the end of that round, Clement Freud and Kenneth Williams are equal in the lead, and Derek and Sheila are trailing more than somewhat. And Clement Freud, it's your turn to begin the next round. The subject is pleasure. Can you talk on that for just a minute, starting now?
Pleasure is dancing barefoot with Derek Nimmo on the water meadows of Walberswick. Alternately, the trickle of golden guineas running through the hands into a money bag. Or, to put it another way, coming into my house and finding it unburgled, which permanently lifts my heart and improves my general outlook on this dreary life, which Derek Nimmo knows so well that I lead.
Derek Nimmo, why do you challenge?
Repetition of Derek Nimmo.
Yes.
You
very
can't
well
have
challenged.
too much.
But you can't get out of it that way. Derek, I agree with your challenge, a repetition of your name, so you take over the subject of pleasure. There are 32 seconds left, starting now.
Oh, my goodness, I'm such a lucky fellow because so much gives me pleasure, do you know. When I go on Brighton Beach and I pick up a pebble and I examine it very closely and see the green and blue lights flashing at me, this is a moment for me of absolute and complete happiness. And yet I have to look only into the eye of a needle, and through it I see a bead shining on the wall.
Clement Freud, you
Hesitation.
Hesitation, alas, because it was rather beautiful and very clever to keep going like that in such a bizarre way. There are 11 seconds left, Clement, for pleasure, starting now.
The inside of an elephant's thigh.
Everybody's challenged, but Kenneth got in first.
Because that's indecent. I've come here to filth. I'm not going to sit here to a load of filth. Insides of people's thighs.
So why are you challenging?
And why did she challenge? Look at Sheila, she went white. She was appalled. The lady on this show, you know. The lady over there. That's a lady.
Thank you.
Well, let's establish why you challenged, then,
It's
Kenneth.
indecent insides of
That's
people's...
not one of the subjects that you can
It's
challenge for.
deviation,
Decency.
of course.
Deviation?
Yes.
Well, I don't know. It's very difficult for me because to another elephant...
Well,
the
ask
inside-
them why
to
they
another
all
elephant,
started.
the inside of an elephant's thigh might be a great pleasure. It's very difficult, isn't it? So shall I ask the audience to judge? Because I think, according to the subject, he's not deviating from the subject, but let you be the final judges of taste. That's how I put it. If you agree with Kenneth's challenge, will you cheer? And if you disagree, will you boo? Will you all do it together now?
Yes, I think that's definitely my side.
They want that element of decency that you bring to the
Of
show.
course you see.
Never a
Only you
moment
agree.
of suggestiveness or filth or anything like that from you,
Precisely,
Kenneth. Right.
exactly.
So you take over the subject of pleasure with 7 seconds left, starting now.
This is always retrospective. It is only when we look back that we realize how lovely it
As Kenneth was speaking when the whistle went, he gets that extra point. And Sheila Hancock, will you begin the next round? And the subject is chips. Can you talk for just a minute on that, starting now?
When I'm abroad, the only thing I desire more than anything in the world is a bag of chips. I don't know what it is, but there's something about the smell of salt and vinegar that one misses dearly. I'm not frightfully good at making these objects, however. I am told that you have to have a deep frying pan and plenty of oil. You can cut your potatoes in various shapes, long thin fingers or short round bits.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
She's being suggestive.
She's not only...
It's in the mind of the beholder.
You got the quotation wrong behind.
You've just got a filthy mind,
Yes,
Kenneth.
that's it. And this time, not only did I disagree with you entirely, but you're not going to get the audience on your side by appealing to their sense of decency and good taste.
Oh, don't bother about me. Just kick me as you pass.
I bet he would, actually.
Sheila Hancock still has her chips. And she has 34 seconds to continue talking about them, starting now.
Which reminds me that there is a saying that you have had these things on the card, which means usually that you're finished and done.
Clement Freud, why are you challenged?
Repetition of these things. She said it 3 times. Would have been better to have said chips.
It would have been better
At least
to have
chips
said
is on the
chips.
card.
Yes, she actually has said card before. I don't know about these things. She has said these things, yes, it's true. She said it 3 times now.
These
yes.
foolish things.
Yes, we can get away. That's a rather hard challenge, I must say, Clement Freud.
Yes.
A rather hard challenge. But if I play the game fairly, I must give you a point and the subject, and there are 27 seconds left for chips, starting now.
The French have different names to describe chips. The very thick ones are called pomme pour neuf, after which they become frites.
Sheila Hancock is challenged.
Hesitation.
Hesitation.
And
indeed, sir.
affectation as well.
But I can only give you 1 point for the hesitation. And you have your chips back again, Sheila, with 15 seconds left, starting now.
They definitely taste better out of newspaper. There's something about the flavour out of newspaper which
Oh,
is...
Clement Freud is challenged.
fool, Sheila, fool!
Clement Freud has the subject with that challenge, and there are 5 seconds left for chips, starting now.
Nicely fried to a golden...
Derek, why have you challenged?
Is fried allowed? Because he repeated it.
Oh, yes, of course it is. Don't say
Is it very loud?
Brilliant.
Fried has been used, so
Yes.
you have a point, Derek, and you have the subject for 1 second. Chips starting now.
When the chips are down,
Clement Freud challenged you before the chips were down.
You can't talk
Yes, you
about-
can, in this particular game. Derek Nimmer has another point. There's half a second left for chips, starting now.
and now they're taking the 0 away from the it does make a tremendous difference to the game because the money goes into the house, whereas it used to before, all goes back to people who were competing in the game. I go
So
to
Derek
many
Nimmer, who
casinos,
was
and I do
looking very
find
hurt before, should have changed his tone by now because he's suddenly got 4 points, but he's still only in 3rd place behind Kenneth Williams, who is behind Clement Freud, who's still in quite a commanding lead. Kenneth, will you begin the next round for us? The subject is Captain Cook. Can you tell us something about him in 60 seconds, starting now?
There are many people with this name, of course, that gives rise to the expression that too many of them spoiled the broth. But the one that I think we're dealing with here was the one who, in the 18th century, vainly tried to find a passage through the Pacific, the Atlantic and Pacific.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
I wonder.
What's the matter with him? I'm
Well-
trying to block him out.
If you don't quickly come out of your sense of wonderment... Hesitation, yes, there was a slight hesitation. Hesitating. Right, Clement Freud has the
Saved it, it
subject.
might come
And
back
there are
to
40
him.
seconds left for Captain Cook, starting now.
When he landed on the north coast of Australia, he did not receive the sort of welcome that...
Derek, Nimmer, you've challenged.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, I agree, Derek, you have the subject, and there are 32 seconds left for Captain Cook. Start. Too many cooks you've had. Captain Cook, starting now.
when I joined the Royal Ulster Rifles and when...
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Deviation, he didn't.
When did you join them, Derek?
About 14 years ago, come Michaelmas.
I've got to take my life in my hands and say I don't believe you.
Well, I'm sorry.
On your oath, did you join the Ulster Rifles? On your oath, as a good churchman on television?
No, but...
No!
Oh, in that moment of weakness, I admired you.
He was allowed to join the Royal Ulster Rifles before.
You didn't challenge him for not joining them.
There,
Derek. Oh, you
gave
All right, so Clement Freud has another point, and there are
That is very interesting.
28 seconds left for the Royal Ulster Rifle. No, it's not for that. 28 seconds left for Captain Cook, starting now. And Derek Nimmer's challenge this time.
Well, he's all packed up. Hesitation.
Yes, he
Was it me?
Yeah, I did say it.
I'm
quite
sorry,
clear.
I-
You were having a little game
There was
with
a
your friends.
filibust going
I know.
on.
No, I did nothing to interrupt you at all. No, no.
That is a Highland accent. It is
Oh,
not
it's
an
really?
Ulster accent. It is not even an Irish accent.
Well, he was
So-
supposed to talk about Captain Cook. Well, I was just looking at him and he failed to come in.
Well, stop playing with him and let us get on with the game. Derek Nimmo has gained a point. because Clement Freud not only didn't hesitate, he actually packed up. And you have the subject of Captain Cook. I think we're still on Captain Cook, aren't we? Anybody in the audience still remember? We've got Captain Cook, Derek Nimmo, 27 seconds starting now.
When I was in His Majesty's Intelligence Corps, we had nearby a unit of the Army catering thing. And
Sheila Hancock, why have you challenged?
Hesitation.
Right, Sheila Hancock has a point, and there were 16 seconds left for Captain Cook, starting now.
He was a dear old man that I used to meet on the beach at Shanklin. I used to collect shells, and Derek Nimmo's tickling me. Now, that's not fair, is it?
Clement Freud challenged there.
Deviation.
Why?
Derek Nimmo tickling. In the name of Captain Cook.
Well, I must say, she might have been on the beach.
Shanklin.
She might have been on the beach with this Captain Cook, and Derek Nimmo might have come up and tickled her for all I know. So therefore, Sheila Hancock has another point, and there are 7 seconds
on
left.
my oath, I did tickle her on the beach at Shanklin.
There are 7. I'm not going to go any
only
further.
on the beach at Shanklin.
We are not going any further. We're trying to keep an element of taste in this program, Sheila. And there are 7 seconds left for Captain Cook, starting now.
And this gentleman and I used to collect seashells, out of which we made ashtrays.
Gentlemen, why have you challenged?
Deviation, this has nothing to do with Captain Cook.
He was called Captain Cook, and he lived in Shanklin. It's another Captain Cook.
This is it, you see. Obviously, you think of the Captain Cook, but Sheila does know another Captain Cook who apparently lives in Shanklin, and if he doesn't, you better write to us and tell us, otherwise it'll all be too late anyway. So Sheila has another point. There are 2 seconds left. Captain Cook, starting now.
He had a wooden leg that was...
So, as Sheila was speaking then when the whistle went, she gains an extra point. And
It's
she
an
has-
absolute lie. I have to confess, there wasn't a Captain Cook who lived in Shanklin.
I'm sorry, Sheila. You must
Just
not
me.
do this after you have just gained
Oh, I know,
so many
but
points.
I couldn't live with it, Nicholas.
Anyway, you weren't deviating from the subject.
Well, I have to cheat. 'cause
I'm
they
glad
all
your
cheat.
conscience
you
got
weren't
better of you,
cheating.
Graham.
No,
I'm glad your conscience got better of you. I'm glad you got the home with it. I like to hear that kind of thing. It's very good. Very good for all. Very good for very salutary. Very salutary.
And that, listeners, was Kenneth Williams giving his impersonation of Clement Freud. At the end of that round, Sheila had leapt forward alongside Kenneth Williams, though she's the other side of the room, into 3rd place, who are 1 point now together behind Derek Nimmo, who is a few points behind our leader, who is still Clement Freud. And Derek Nimmo, will you begin the next round? The subject is bridge. Will you talk on that for just a minute, starting now?
Well, this is a game that was invented by the Ruskies, in which rather a curious display takes place. Somebody has to reveal their hand, and the chap opposite him, partnering him, plays it for him. It also, of course, can be a crossing place over a river, and these I like very much. My favourite ones are the one over the River Wear, which was immortalised in so many pieces of Sunderland.
Clement Freud, why did you challenge?
Hesitate.
Yes, there was a hesitation. Repetition of...
Immortalized in so many pieces. How can you be immortalized in so many pieces of Sunderland?
I haven't finished.
How can you be immortalised in more than one piece anyway?
The pieces of
Why didn't you challenge him for
pottery,
it?
I
I
don't
was
say.
just
All
laughing
that
at my
happened.
humour. My humour got
If you'll
the
just
better
keep quiet a second, Kenneth. Thank you very much. All that happened, if you're still with just a minute, was that Clement Freud challenged for hesitation. I agreed. He gains a point and the subject, and there are 33 seconds left for bridge, starting now.
Spanning the River Thames, going east, you first come to Hampton, then Richmond.
Kenneth Williams, why do you challenge?
Well, you don't. It's deviation. You don't first come to it unless you're coming from a certain direction. And as he didn't state it first, which direction it's coming from, the whole statement is actually untrue.
What
Actually,
a funny way you have of establishing him as being devious. Yes, that's a very good challenge.
may
a
I?
very clever
Sorry,
challenge.
a point of fairness. Mr. Clement Freud did say he was coming from the east. It was established
No, he
quite
said he
early
was
on in the
Going
West.
east, and
But
therefore...
where
one-
east?
From the east.
Well, from Hampton.
But if you're coming from the east,
No,
it
I said I was
becomes...
going east.
You're going west, mate, if you're
Yes,
not.
you did not establish where you start from, and the first bridge you see is Hampton, then you are in deviation on the subject, because you might have been miles up the Thames, somewhere where it
Yes,
rises.
you're absolutely right.
So Kenneth Williams has a point, and he takes over the subject, Kenneth.
What is the subject?
Hampton, actually. It's Hampton.
Bridge.
Oh.
And there are 26 seconds left, starting now.
The most famous bridge, I suppose, in the world is that incredible Sydney one, the cantilever principle on which it is built. Aha,
Caleb Lemonfroy, why have you challenged?
Deviation.
Why?
On which it is built. It's actually built.
I don't think build, you know, no. It's not quite fair. It's trying too hard, Clement. Kenneth has another point, and he keeps the bridge, and 14 seconds left, starting now.
And there's another enchanting one in St. James's Park, which spans the lake, and if you stand in the centre.
Derek Nimmo, why do you challenge?
Repetition of span.
Yes, the other one spanned at Sydney Harbour. So you've spanned twice.
You're enough mean. I picked you up on a daft thing like that.
Well, you
They're
would.
mean.
I don't think that was mean. I think it was rather good. He was listening. So Derek gets a point and the subject, and there are 8 seconds left for bridge, starting now.
Very important to have one of these in your mouth. Otherwise, you talk like Kenneth Williams.
Clement Freud challenged you, Derek. Why did you challenge Clement?
Repetition.
Of what? I will decide that the audience applause means that they agree with your challenge, because I will not interpret on that one. And there are 3 seconds left for you, Clement, on bridge, starting now.
Going west from London Bridge.
Derek Nimmo has challenged. Why?
Repetition of points of the compass.
He was going east before.
Yes, I know. Repetition of points of the compass. The south and north. When he gets to those, our challenge as well.
But he did not repeat the word, and this is usually the way. That's the type of repetition we give points on. So Clement has another point, and still the subject of bridge, and 1 second to go, starting now.
Earth has not anything to show more fair. Dull would he be of thought who could pass by a sight so touching in its majesty.
Well, I'm afraid...
The city now doth like a garment wear the beauty of the morning. Silent, bare ships.
You've won without having to rub it in. I'm afraid that is all we have time for in this particular edition of Just a Minute. I'm sure you'll be delighted to know that almost equal in second place were Derek Nimmo, Kenneth Williams and Sheila Hancock. And they were all a considerable way, in fact twice as many points ahead, was this week's winner, Clement Freud. You've enjoyed this particular edition of Just a Minute, and from all of us here, goodbye.
Chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The program was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by David Hatch. We present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud, and Denise Coffey in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you very much. Hello, and welcome once again to Just a Minute. And once again, I'm going to ask our 4 panelists, they will try and speak for just a minute on some unlikely subject, without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject. If one of the other 3 think they're guilty of doing this, they may press their buzzer, and if I agree with the challenge, they will gain a point and also take over the subject. If I disagree with the challenge, then whoever is speaking will keep the subject and continue, and of course gain a point in the process. That's the way we score, and let us begin this week with Derek Nimmo. Derek, a subject that Ian Messiter has thought up, which I'm sure is going to give me great difficulty, but let's hope everybody else a lot of fun, polystyrene. Can you start the program by talking for 60 seconds on polystyrene, starting now?
Once upon a time, in northern Ceylon, there lived an emigre family from one of the smaller Balkan states called Styrene. There was the mother, the father, son and the daughter whose name was Kinga. But unlike the rest of the people who were tea planters, she was terribly enthusiastic.
Clement Freud, you challenge, why?
Hesitation.
Yes, hesitation. Yes, he was getting so carried away with his impossible story, he stumbled, and I agree with the challenge, so Clement Freud gains a point. He takes over the subject, polystyrene, and there are 43 seconds left, starting now.
As the sun rose late over Colombo, polystyrene went back to the plantation, where her father had...
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged, why?
He was dead.
I thought I might have some difficulty, but not this sort of difficulty, I must say. So, Derek says he was dead, and Clement says he's alive,
You're
and
sure?
the only people who can judge whether polystyrene's father was dead or alive is the audience, because it's either Derek's word or Clement's. Do you think, ladies and gentlemen of the audience, that polystyrene's father is dead? And if you do, would you please cheer? And if you think she's
planted the tea?
What's that?
If he's dead... Sorry, I'm sorry. Who was planting the tea if he's dead?
Before his
Brothers,
decease.
brothers, even sisters. Will you cheer if you think he's dead, and will you boo if you think he's alive? Starting now. A complete draw, so no points scored. Clement Freud keeps the subject, and there are 35 seconds left for polystyrene, starting now.
This is actually a material for which the chemical formula is H22C11O5.
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
It's not H22.
You're absolutely right, and you gain a point, and you take over the subject of polystyrene with 26 seconds left, starting now.
It's derived from a Greek word, of course, meaning many, and it really means a lot of little styrenes. And it's a fabric which is used because of its wonderful properties for keeping out the damp and retaining the heat. And you can stick it on walls and on ceilings, and it's terribly nice for tea planters to live in when they come back from hot climates. And therefore, it's awfully interesting, you know, when you read a manual of British workmanship, you always find polystyrene mentioned at least 7 times, which is repetitious.
Well, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes, which tells us, by the way, that 60 seconds is up, gains an extra point. In this occasion, it was Derek Nimmo, and I think it was very well deserved, because he kept going on something he knew nothing about terribly well. So Derek, at the end of that round, has 2 points, and Clement Freud has 1, and the others have yet to score. Denise Coffey, will you begin the next round? The subject is my nightie. I paused because I suddenly thought, as I said, it sounded a bit funny. But anyway, will you talk about my nightie? 60 seconds, starting now.
I don't know what Nicholas Parsons' nightie looks like, so I can't really discuss it at any great length. I will, however, tell those ladies and gentlemen of the audience who think that I am wearing my nightie at this moment that they are quite wrong. I heard you. Ooh, ow.
Derek Nimmo, you challenge.
The repetition of I heard.
A very, very rapid challenge there, and I agree with it. So you gain a point, Derek, and you take over the subject of my nightie. 46 seconds left, starting now.
My nightie is an absolutely beautiful princess line maxi, made out of the finest gossamer, woven in silk by Lady Hartdyke's little bow arms on a little mill down somewhere.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Repetition.
Of what?
Little worm, little mill.
That's true.
That's right, yes. There were 2 littles, alas. Very sharp. And Derek Clement Freud, I agree with your challenge. You gain a point, therefore. And you have 32 seconds left for my nightie, starting now.
I inherited my nightie from my grandfather, who always wore them. And when he died, my grandmother said, "Would you like these?" There was a war on at the time. And I said, "Yes, very much indeed." And while many of you were not yet born, or perhaps still on national milk, I was out there fighting for you in my nightie. This was of considerable embarrassment to my platoon sergeant, because at the time, all the other soldiers were manifesting other ways of weird...
Well, as Clement Freud was speaking then when the whistle went, he gains the extra point, and another well-deserved point, because I do think his nightie was most fascinating. And I didn't realize that it's entirely due to his nightie that so many of us are here today in this hall, saved from the wrath of Hitler's Nazism. Nazi,
Nighties.
Hitler's 90s. Right, Clement Freud, will you begin the next round? Oh, by the way, at the end of that round, Clement Freud has a lead of 1 over everybody else, which is actually Derek Nimmo, because the other 2 have yet to score. Clement, will you begin the next round for us? Strange noises. Actually, it's been misspelt. It's stranage noises. Is that right? Is it strange? Is it strange? Thank you very much, Ian Mester. Strange noises, Clement Freud, 60 seconds, starting now.
One of the strangest noises I ever heard was the falling of eyelashes on a parquet floor. It was late one evening in Norfolk that I passed through the town of Homerton, and there...
Oh, I wonder when someone... Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
Hesitation.
Yes, but you know why he hesitated, don't you?
Because he repeated something.
No, because Honiton's not in Norfolk.
I didn't say Homerton.
But anyway, he did hesitate. I quite agree with the challenge. What did you say, Clement?
Homerton.
Homerton, I'm so sorry.
Sorry.
Yes, Homerton is, yes.
But I mean, ignorance of geography is no...
Well, your lack of diction is no excuse to insult the chairman either. And there are 45 seconds left for you, Derek Nimmo, having gained another point, and the subject to talk on strange noises starting now.
The strangest noise I ever heard was the tweaking of a common tern that was standing on the top of Nelson's monument in Trafalgar Square. All the pigeons were so surprised to see this nautical bird there. They all took flight and flew around with a great whoo. And it was very odd, because at that moment, rifle fire broke out at the other side of the palace, and no idea what was going to happen.
No,
I'm terribly relieved.
And Derek Nimmo's no idea either.
I had no idea.
Kenneth, you have challenged.
Well, hesitation.
Hesitation, I quite agree, but I have to hear it. you see.
Okay.
Yes, that's right. Kenneth, and also it's nice to hear your voice. Kenneth, you gain a point, and you take over the subject of strange noises, and there are 16 seconds left, starting now.
I heard some extremely strange noises when I was in Dietalower in Ceylon, and I remember thinking at the time, these must be bullfrogs. I can hear, and I was so afraid, I took out a fag. I was on sentry duty, and she never done it.
Well done, Kenneth. You get 2 points now, because you were speaking when the whistle went, and it is your turn to begin the next round. The subject is aestheticism. I'll say it again to make sure. I can't pronounce it. Aestheticism. 60 seconds, starting now.
Well, I presume this pertains to the aesthete, someone who has a superior appreciation of beauty and elegance. My aesthetic sensibilities are always appalled and confounded by the environment in which I find myself today. Flat-top buildings with no aspirational quality whatsoever, no sense of reaching out, awful hoardings with their screaming commercial exhortations. Buy this, purchase the other. What a load of old rubbish. And that lovely nuns' choir in Great St. Helens, ruined, all the panelling gone now. One wonders where we are heading. Is it up to the gates of heaven in a formless din, crying, we are the lost ones, we are the betrayed ones? Think, for they must do something to let us in. Or are we to sink into this quagmire whereby we judge nothing of beauty, nothing of real significance, a life totally dominated by the
Goodness me, there were the rifle shots that were coming from the palace. Kenneth Williams, a well-deserved round of applause. A marvellous little diatribe on...
Are you going to tell me I've leapt into the lead?
You have?
Oh, hooray! Oh, hooray! Oh, I might say...
You not only got a point for speaking when the whistle went, but you get that extra bonus point for keeping going for 60 seconds without being interrupted, the first time it's happened for quite a number of shows. And you have leapt into the lead alongside Clement Freud and Derek Nimmo. There we are. So the 3 boys are out there in front, neck and neck, and now we carry on, right? Derek, will you begin the next round? Weddings I have been to. That's the subject, and can you talk about them for 60 seconds starting now?
Well, the very first wedding I went to was when I was 4 years old, and I went to the marriage of my uncle, Ronald Kershaw Sudbury Hardy, who married my Auntie Marjorie, and I was a page boy, and I was in brown velvet trousers with a lovely cream silk shirt. And very pretty I looked, and I've got photographs to prove it. The most interesting wedding I went to, I think, was to my mother's, which was more recently, when she married again a dear fellow called Reginald Walker, and I gave her away.
Clement Fry, why have you challenged?
Well, repetition and carelessness. For his mother to marry again is repetition, and to give her away, I think, is real.
It's a very nice try, but I don't think it's either repetitious. I mean, the fact that he's given his mother away, well, I'm sorry, that's just between him and his mother. They've got to sort that one out. I mean, you can't
Well,
take...
you should get a bonus point for wit.
Well, I thought it was amusing, but not all that witty. I mean,
above you, perhaps.
Oh, yeah.
I loved hearing it. I'm just going to give him a great complimentary pat on the back for trying very well and keeping us very well entertained. But means that Derek keeps the subject, and he has 36 seconds left. Weddings I've been to starting now.
And then Lucy Mackworth Young was spliced with Paul Myersburg. That was a very interesting one to go to, because everyone wore floral clothes, big hats with bunches of dandelions on top and lovely dangly things round about there, and all sorts of floral shoes, and very pretty little...
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
We had floral twice.
Yes, indeed. He's
Yes, absolutely right. Yes,
absolutely
quite
right.
Absolutely right.
So, Kenneth, your floral gets you a point, and the subject, and there are 17 seconds left. Weddings I've been to starting now.
The only wedding I can ever recall going to was my Aunt Phyllis's wedding, and it took place in the parish of Barnsbury. I had the good fortune to have a word with the vicar, and he did give me some advice, which I shall never...
Well, as Kenneth was speaking then when the whistle went, he gets that extra point, and he now definitely has a lead, a commanding lead of 1 over everybody else. Right, Denise Coffey, will you begin the next round? Doing the splits. I don't know whether you can or not, but that's the subject that Messrs thought of you to talk about for 60 seconds starting now.
In my younger years, I was in Variety, or vaudeville as it's known in the United States of America, and I was extremely athletic and was able to do all sorts of wonderful handstands. And I saw an advertisement one year when I happened not to be working anywhere, and it said, "Wanted young girl for doing the splits. Apply 15 High Street, Bunbury, Devon." So I thought, well, I can't really be worse off than I am. I was getting a bit old at the time. My splits weren't done as well as they had been in my youth. But I got on the train. I got off it quickly.
Derek Nimmer, why have you changed?
The deviation, she was in America at the time.
Oh, no.
I don't think so.
It was merely a description of the word.
I think she'd established that she had been in America, but she'd seen this advertisement. And anyway, even so, she could have flown back before she got on the train, but she just ignored, bothered to tell us that. So Denise has another point and keeps the subject, and there are 24 seconds left for doing the splits starting now.
Discovering it was going to Edinburgh, I left it quickly and got on one that was going to Devon, where I arrived very late.
Clement Fry, why have you challenged?
Deviation.
Why?
It's impossible to get on a train which you think is going to Devon when it goes to Edinburgh. A different station, different terminals, you know. Really.
It's quite possible. It depends on the state of mind you're in at the moment.
Oh, come.
You could have had her for repetition of Devon. But no, I mean, obviously, I mean, she hasn't actually deviated from the subject. Her state of mind...
Deviated from Devon, she's gone to Edinburgh.
I know, but she might have been in such... I mean, from the description of her ideas about the splits, it obviously seems that she was in such a devious and devastating state of mind that she could have done anything. And so she gets another point and keeps the subject, and there are 16 seconds left for doing the splits. Denise Coffey, starting now.
Apprehensive and distressed, I made my way to the address on the letter.
Oh, someone's pressed a buzzer, but no light has come on. Oh, was that you, Derek?
Yes, for made my way, actually. Repetition of made my way.
Oh.
Yes, she did make her way, more than once, yes. So that
I
is...
have, yes.
Yes, it's very difficult sometimes when you're stopped. You start again, you start with the same phrase. So, Derek, you gain a point and the subject with 10 seconds left, doing the splits, starting now.
You don't need all this travelling at all, really. All you have to do is get hold of your left leg, shove it out to the east, get hold of your right leg, shove it out to the west, and down you go.
Denise Coffey, why have you challenged?
You actually pointed towards the north.
If my compass is right, he actually pointed towards the south. But it doesn't matter, he still wasn't pointing east and west. So well done, Denise, you'll gain another point. And there are 4 seconds left for doing the splits, starting now.
I discovered to my horror it was a cafe in which I was supposed to put cream.
So, the splits has brought Denise Coffey back into the game with a bang, and she now is in second place alongside Clement Freud, who are both behind Derek Nimmo and Kenneth Williams, who are still together in the lead. Kenneth, will you begin the next round? In fact, it's your turn to begin the next round. Things, well, dear, the subjects that Ian thought of this week. Things worth writing on a wall. So can you tell us some of the things, Kenneth, that you think are worth writing on a wall?
Well, there are many people
But
that believe...
starting... Oh. He's so keen. He's always at it, obviously. Starting now.
There are many people that believe...
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged.
Repetition.
You haven't started.
Derek, it was repetition, but he hadn't started. So perhaps the fairest thing is not to award any points. Oh yes, he must award a point because you had started. The other time was another thing. Yes, right. Yes, you have another point, Kenneth. And you have 58.5 seconds to continue on things worth writing on a wall, starting now.
The only things worth writing on a wall should be either instructions as to what it's there for, or leading to, or something...
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Deviation.
Why?
Well, a wall can't lead to anything.
On the contrary.
The whole point of a wall is that it
How do you mean?
because not illuminated.
How do you mean about leading to?
Well, obviously, passages have walls and they lead somewhere.
And
Passages have walls.
Yes, yeah.
Well, that's a very
It may interest you to know the Roman wall led all the way from Berwick, didn't it?
Yes.
To somewhere else.
Carlisle, if you want to know.
Oh, thank you.
That's... All right, in that sense, it did lead somewhere. You usually use it's true, isn't it? But of course, one doesn't think of it leading in the
Well, you
sense of
put
people
your
that
hand
follow.
along them and you'll find you'll be led somewhere. Of course you will.
I've never followed a wall.
Oh, never been in a dark room?
I felt
You
my
live
way
away in a
along.
dark room?
I felt my way along a wall.
Well, there you are.
I walked
and it
beside
leads
a
you to
wall.
somewhere.
But
doesn't
I'm
it?
absolutely with you, Kenneth. So you have another point. You have made your point, and the audience obviously agree with it. And you have 47 seconds to continue on things worth writing on a wall, starting now.
The most worthwhile thing was, of course, written on the wall by Trajan, giving us that beautiful, elegant script which we all now recognize as Trajan.
Derek Nimmo, you challenged.
Trajan.
Trajan, yes.
Ah, but it's hyphenated Trajan Roman, I'm saying.
If you said it before, you see.
But I was hyphenated then.
Well, you become unhyphenated from your subject, that's all. But you said Trajan twice. You can't
Well, I
get away
think
with
that
that.
is Christ. I really do.
Derek Nimmo has a point. Takes over the subject. 34 seconds. Things worth writing on a wall. Derek starting now.
Well, I always think exit's a very good thing to write on a wall, especially if there's a door underneath. And then entrance if there's another door further along. So that's repetition of door.
Denise Coffey, why have you
The
chosen?
words right out of my mouth.
Right, so Denise, you gain a point, and there are 26 seconds left. Things worth writing on a wall, starting now.
The only things worth writing on a wall are starring Denise Coffey in the new play by the same author whose name has been mentioned above.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Repetition of name.
Name?
The name of Denise Coffey and the author, the same name.
Oh, yes, that is perfectly correct. She did say that. Clement, you have a point, and you have the subject, and there are 17 seconds left.
What is the subject again? I'm sorry.
I'm just about to give it to you. I speak fast enough most of the time, but things worth writing on a wall, starting now.
O God of battles, steel my soldiers' hearts, possess them not with fear, take from them now their sense of reckoning of the opposing numbers.
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
repetition of.
I'm not going to allow it, so... Clement continues with the subject. There are 9 seconds left. Things worth writing on a wall, starting now.
The rich arrived in pairs and also in Rolls Royces. They talked about
Denise
affairs.
Coffey, why have you challenged?
Repetition of rich people who arrived in pairs.
He didn't say rich people twice. He only said it once.
No,
Arrived in
I'm
pairs.
talking about the pairs of rich people. The rich arrived in pairs.
All right, Denise. A bonus point for cleverness, and
now
Clement
I
continues
feel-
with the subject. 4 seconds left. Things worth writing on a wall, starting now.
Do not write upon this wall is probably less worth writing on.
Well, as Freud was speaking then when the whistle went, he gets that extra bonus point, and I hope he feels now that things are equal in a case of justification for awards on decisions. And he's still trailing 1 point behind Kenneth Williams, and 1 point behind him is Derek Nimmo, and a little behind is Denise Coffey. So, Denise Coffey, will you begin the next round for us? The subject is ghost hunting. Can you talk for 60 seconds on ghost hunting, starting now?
I think ghost hunting is cruel and barbaric, and it should be put a stop to immediately. As Oscar Wilde might have said, it's the incredible in pursuit of the invisible, and I think it's absolutely disgusting. I had a letter from a...
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
Repetition of disgust.
Did I say that before?
Yes, indeed you
Absolutely,
did. Derek, you get a point and the subject, and there are 48 seconds left for ghost hunting, starting now.
A friend of mine was staying in a hotel in Burford. He'd been told by the landlord that there was a ghost in this particular hostelry. Going to his bedroom, he had no idea that this was the one in which it walked. It was the spirit of Oliver Cromwell. And the curious thing, when he actually saw it, and this he did do, was that it had a terrible smell as well, because apparently the aforementioned leader of the Commonwealth had halitosis. And it's very strange. This happened only some 3 weeks ago, and I'm very interested in the story. Another time I personally went ghost hunting was in a house called...
Clement Foy, why have you challenged?
Had too many ghosts, I think.
No,
Ghost hunting.
you can use ghost hunting, which is the subject on the card,
right.
more than once.
I'd like to give him a point in that case.
I know, when you're in the lead, when you're in the lead, you're exceptionally generous. And when you're trailing a little, it's absolutely clawing tooth and nail. But there are 14 seconds left for you, Derek Nimmo. Ghost hunting starting now.
Miss Craigie Hawkett went into a room at the top of the house.
Kenneth Williams, your challenge.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, I agree. So, Kenneth, you get a point, and there are 11 seconds left for ghost hunting starting now.
Well, I knew one man that did go on such an expedition, and he said afterwards that there was the most eerie sensation as a dress seemed to swish past him, and it smelled.
Well, I'm sorry to have to tell you that is the end of the show this week, because that's all we have time for. But I do have to give you the final score. And a very interesting result, because it was neck and neck right up to the end. And we have joint winners this week. Just to let you know that Denise Coffey and Derek Nimmo trail a little behind this week's joint winners, Kenneth Williams and Clement Freud. So, all the acrimony and frustration that we saw on that side of the... that side of what? That side of the stage at the beginning of the show has now been put right, because they're joint winners, and congratulations to them. We do hope you've enjoyed this edition of Just a Minute, and from all of us here, goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The program was devised by Ian Mester and produced by David Hatch. We present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud, and Denise Coffey in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and welcome once again to Just a Minute. And once more, I'm going to ask our four panelists to try and speak for just a minute on some unlikely subject without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject. If one of the other three think they are guilty of doing this, they may challenge. If I agree with the challenge, then okay, they gain a point and take over the subject. And if I disagree with the challenge, then the person speaking gains a point and continues with the subject. That is how we play. And let us begin this week with Denise Coffey. Denise, the subject is ironing my smalls. Can you talk about that for just a minute, starting now?
When I was at Oxford University, there was a preliminary examination which was known popularly as Smalls. I passed this with flying colours, I need hardly say, and put it away in a drawer, the document which proved how clever I was. Some years later, I had to produce this piece of paper. To my horror, I discovered it was all crumpled up. So I thought the only logical thing to do would be to iron it out. And so it was that I was ironing my smalls one day, which was a very embarrassing situation to be found in, because I said it over the telephone to somebody who called. They shrieked with laughter. I knew they were little, they said.
Derek Nimmer, why have you challenged?
Hesitation, I'm afraid.
Yes, I agree. There was a definite hesitation there. I agree with the challenge, Derek, so you gain a point, and you take over the subject. There are 20 seconds left. Ironing my smalls, starting now.
I've never really been quite sure what smalls are, but I suppose they mean knickers, do they, really? Well, in that case, my smalls are really rather large, because I don't have those things that are called jockey planks. Isn't that an odd thing? Why do they call them that? Because they're always rather long, aren't they, really? But anyway, when I iron my panties, I put them on a table, or even on a board which is supplied in good hardware shops for that purpose. I plug in an iron...
He plugs in an iron and the whistle goes. And that whistle tells us that 60 seconds is up, and whoever is speaking that moment gains an extra point. And this occasion it was Derek Nimmo, and at the end of that round he is the only person who scored any points. Clement Freud, will you begin the next round, please? The subject is my favourite words. Will you talk about them for 60 seconds, starting now?
My favorite words are hot and wheelbarrow. I'll just repeat that. Hot and...
Derek Nimmo, you challenge.
Repetition
It's the words on the thing.
Oh, you're trying to be very clever and get me in a very difficult situation.
You're allowed to repeat the words.
You are allowed to
Yes,
repeat
they're not.
my favourite words, which is what is written in front of me. I maintain that you have repeated a word you should not repeat, which is hot, and so Derek Nimmo gains a point, and he takes over the subject with 51 seconds left. My favourite words, starting now.
Running, walking, beware, Clement Freud, nasty.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Clement Freud couldn't be called a favourite word. It is somebody's name.
Well, all I can say is I am not going to get in a personal situation between two people in the show. If you think Clement Freud should be a favourite word, will you cheer? And if you think he shouldn't be, will you boo? And will you all do it together now? There, I think the cheers got it, don't you? So, Derek Nimmo gains a point and keeps the subject with 47 seconds left. My favourite words, starting now.
Another selection from my favourite words would include rocking horse, merry-go-round, lamps, exit, gentleman with glasses, green pullover, blue vest, striped job, cow, moo, white hair, running, jump.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Hesitation.
How
Running.
very difficult.
Not hesitation.
I don't think he quite
Measured
hesitated. He was getting very, very close to hesitating, but he didn't quite hesitate. And so Derek Nimmo gains a point, and there are 24 seconds left for my favourite words, starting now.
The Smoker's Match. Scotland.
Kenneth Williams, why have
This
you
is deviation. You see, he's not really giving his favourite words. He's just picked up a matchbox and
I
photographed.
quite agree. He's not giving his favourite words. Very good challenge. I was waiting for that one, and I must explain to the listeners there's a kind of amusement before when he's going through words, because he was looking at the audience and reciting some of the, getting ideas from the clothes that they were wearing and the colour of their hair and things like that. But where the moo cow came in, I don't really know. So. Anyway, a good challenge by Kenneth Williams gains him a point and the subject, and there are 22 seconds left. My favourite words, starting now.
Most of my favourite words have got connotations which are comical, sometimes deeply affectionate. Things like lachrymose and things like...
Denise Coffey, you've challenged.
Repetition of things like...
Yes, I'm gallant you are.
Well,
I think it's the other way round. A fellow must be gallant to a lady, really. You know, Kenneth. So there we are.
We met.
Gains a point and takes over the subject with 5 seconds left for my favourite words starting now.
my favourite words are umbrageous, which means leafy and of the trees.
Kenneth and his wife, you challenge.
How can you say my favourite words and then say umbrageous only one? Should
Because
not
I'm
admit-
ignorant and ill-educated and I'm trying my best.
But,
Now who's a heel?
Yes, because I got to award it to him as well. All the sympathy of the audience is with you, Denise, as you can see and you can hear. But Kenneth has a very subtle point there, and he takes over the subject of my favourite words with 1 second left, starting now.
Petrification.
At the end of that round, Derek Nimmo has a very definite lead over Kenneth Williams. Denise Coffey is following, and Clement Freud is at the present moment in last place. Kenneth Williams, will you begin the next round for us? A hippopotamus's point of view. I think I'm going to have some problems on this one. All right, Kenneth, have you got the subject and had a little thought about it, and will you start now?
The hippopotamus point of view is, of necessity, rather limited, and frequently he suffers from a deep-rooted sense of inferiority. As the authority, Mr. Rudge, has it, when the elephant came and saw him and cried, "I say, look here, although giraffes are good for laughs, please send that chap away. His manners are disgusting, and his habits far from nice. We can't have tea with itty-bitty, hippo-poto mice." Now, that, of course, could be taken as a comical analogy, but I would venture to suggest that a parallel may be found in human behaviour patterns, that animals very often, in exemplary ways, do show us, though the method be somewhat crafty, be somewhat underhand... Oh, I said somewhat twice.
Clement Freud, you've challenged.
Repetition.
Yes, what a pity. He only had 2 seconds to complete another clear round. Oh, well. They all have to be tough with each other at some point. And this time it was Clement Freud's turn, and he was tough, but he gains himself a point, and there are 2 seconds left, Clement, for a hippopotamus's point of view, starting now.
I shot a hippopotamus with bullets made
So, at the end of that round, it's exactly the same position as before, except Clement is now in 3rd place instead of 4th. Derek Nimmo, will you begin the next round? Nursery rhymes. Can you talk? I suppose you can recite if you wish. Nursery rhymes, 60 seconds, starting now.
Nursery rhymes are little poems that are taught to one in one's childhood. Awfully nice, by either one's nanny or mummy or grandparents. All sorts of folk can teach you these lovely little ditties. One of my favourite ones is, "Hickory dickory dock, the mouse ran out the clock." Oh, the timepiece struck 1, the 4-legged animal ran down, ditto the same and almost identical. Another one, which I rather like, is, "Little Tommy Tucker sang for his supper. What shall we give him but brown bread and..." And remember this, but...
Clement Freud, you challenged.
hesitation.
Yes, hesitation, yes. I would have... Yeah, but you definitely hesitated. You were crazy. You were very clever before. But actually, if I was playing the game, I'd have had you for deviation because you didn't stick to the nursery rhyme correctly. But still, that's past now. Clement Freud has you on hesitation, which I agree. He gains a point. And there are 23 seconds left. Nursery rhymes, Clement, starting now.
As winter sets in over the nursery, you notice this extraordinary greeny white spongy substance which scientists call rime, which forms as a result of...
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Deviation. We're discussing nursery rhymes, not nurseries where seeds are brought to maturity.
I don't know what's going to do with seeds. I don't know what the scientists call. I think he's absolutely devious. What is this stuff that you're talking about, the scientists, Clement?
Rhyme.
What did you say?
Rhyme.
Oh, rhyme, I'm sorry. Anyway, we're not talking, it has nothing to do with nursery rhymes, which
You said it
means...
was in the nursery.
What's that?
You said it wasn't in the nursery. I don't want to support Mr. Freud, really, but he did say
No,
it
you
wasn't
can
in the
cut out all those dulcet tones, all that flannel you're trying on. I mean, the whole thing is no
Ladies and gentlemen of the audience, do you
you
agree with Kenny Willisom's challenge? If you do, will you cheer? If you disagree, will you boo? Will you all do it together now?
Boo!
Kenneth Williams has a point. He has 10 seconds left for nursery rhymes, starting now.
These are made up very often to entertain and enlighten at the...
Derek Nimmer, why do you challenge?
Deviation, they're not made up, they're passed down.
They've still got to be made up by somebody. At
Well,
some
they're not
particular
made up
time,
anymore.
somebody has, not anymore, but they were at one point in their existence made up, so it's not deviating from the subject. Kenneth has another point, 4 seconds left, nursery rhyme starting now.
I don't know them myself. I never actually have stood about some...
So, as Kenneth was speaking then when the whistle went, he now goes into the lead alongside Derek Nimmo. Clement Freud, it's your turn to begin. The subject is the shed in our garden. Can you talk about the shed in our garden for 60 seconds, starting now?
The shed in our garden came from the back page of the Radio Times. This is invariably filled with structures of that kind, and we sent off 28 and sixpence a week.
Kenneth Williams, why do you
A
challenge?
deviation. Obviously, the back of the Radio Times can't be full of constructions. He must have meant that it was full of illustrations of these constructions. If it were full of these instructions, it would never get onto a bookstore in the first place.
I think I know the point you're trying to make.
But any
The shed in
reasonable
his
human-
garden could not have come from the back page of the Radio Times. The instructions on how to make it could have come. Kenneth has a point and he has 47 seconds left. The shed in our garden starting now.
The shed in our garden was once a gazebo or Wendy house. Sometimes it was called one or t'other.
Derek Nimmer, why do you challenge?
Repetition of ha 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 ha.
If you weren't in the lead, I'd give you 2 points. One for a good reply, but you just get 1 for the clever spotting of the repetition. There are 36 seconds left, Derek, for the shed in our garden starting now.
The nearest garden to me is in the Royal Borough of Kensington, where I live, and is called Kensington Garden. And there...
Kenneth Williams, why do you
Two
challenge?
mentions of Kensington.
The 2 mentions of Kensington is quite correct.
Oh, absolutely right.
27 seconds for the shed in our garden, Kenneth, starting now.
Sometimes known as the woodshed, and various nasty things could have happened in it.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Deviation.
Why?
If it was a gazebo, it couldn't be a woodshed.
But he never established it was a gazebo. It
He
said,
did.
no,
Sometimes known as.
sometimes known as a gazebo, sometimes known as a Wendy house. He might have had
But
a...
what sort of nuts live in a house?
Kenneth Williams,
Have you
obviously.
ever known anyone who sometimes called a shed a woodshed and the other time a gazebo?
I've heard people refer to their Rolls Royce as the Tin Lizzie.
Yeah, there you are. Yeah. That's one in the eye, isn't
I've heard
it?
people refer
Next
to...
to it.
And I've heard people refer to your palatial mansion
right.
as a tin shed.
Yeah.
So, Kenneth has another point, and there are 18 seconds left for the shed in our garden, Kenneth, starting now.
Actually, it's something I don't really want to discuss because we're bound to be led on into some kind
Derek Nimmer, why have you challenged?
Well, deviation, if he doesn't want to discuss, I thought I'd help him out.
All you've done is to help to give him another point, because while he's... Just explain to the listeners that that particular challenge has given Derek Nimmo cramp, and he's now hobbling about the stage.
Doctor in the house.
Is there a doctor in the house?
Yes, all right.
Would he go home?
It was very clever, because I know, Kenneth Williams had said he didn't really want the subject, but he begged him to talk about it, and
No, I
Derek
didn't.
Nimmo said that he would therefore take it
Oh,
over.
no, I didn't. I said I really don't want to talk about it.
Do you want to talk?
apropos
Yes.
of what I'd said before, which was something nasty in the
But
woodshed.
in this game, you may not want the subject, but whether you have it or not, you're obliged to talk about it, which is exactly what Kenneth was doing, so he gains another point, and he continues with 14 seconds left, the shed in our garden, starting now.
Funny little men wearing caps and bells and little fairy glades and curious...
Denise Coffey, why have you challenged?
You mentioned little twice. Repetition.
Yes, you did, little funny men, that's right. So Denise, you gain a point, and there are 8 seconds left for the shed in our garden, Denise, starting now.
The shed in our garden is open for public inspection at 6pence per adult and 3pence per child every weekday.
Kenneth Williams, Michael
She
Chapman.
purrs.
You purred a little bit too much, Denise, alas. So, Kenneth gets the subject back with another point, of course. 3 seconds left, starting now.
Sometimes known as a lean-to, in which you can keep all your old rubbish.
Well, as Kenneth Williams was speaking then when the whistle went, he gains not another point, and he has now really got a commanding lead over everybody else at the end of that round. Kenneth Williams, it's your turn to begin the next round, and the subject is the Two Gentlemen of Verona. You look as if you don't know much. I don't know whether you ever played in the play, but if not, can you talk about the Two Gentlemen of Verona for 60 seconds, starting now?
What first comes to mind is Con Grande Francesco della Scala, who sacked Padua and made Verona one of the greatest fortresses in northern Italy. One of the others that comes to mind would be Paolo Veronese, the marvelous painter from that city whose canvas, The Rape of Europa, has delighted the eye of many an art connoisseur. Indeed, it's maintained in certain quarters that he foresaw or shadowed, so to speak, 18th century painting with his cool, mellow tones. Of course, the great protector there of Dante, the grand...
Clement Freud, you've challenged. Why?
Hesitation.
Yes, I'm afraid there was. I still don't quite know what's all to do with the Two Gentlemen of
They were
Verona.
both gentlemen of Verona.
You were just talking about gentlemen who live in Verona or associate.
Well, that's all it says in the
Doesn't
card,
matter,
Two
doesn't matter. You
Gentlemen
didn't
of
get challenged about it. We loved it so much that nobody challenged you until you hesitated. And it was Clement Freud. 11 seconds left for you, Clement. Just Two Gentlemen of Verona, starting now.
The Two Gentlemen of Verona were tremendously good friends, so much so that one of the ladies of Verona complained most bitterly about being neglected and having to spend all the time on her own.
Clement Freud was then speaking when the whistle went, so he gains the extra point, and he's now in second place, equal with Derek Nimmo, but still trailing behind Kenneth Williams. Derek, will you begin the next round, please? The subject is aerobatics. Can you talk about aerobatics? I'm sorry, I've decided to change. Ian Messert has given me the wink. He said, Derek Nimmo, the subject for you has been changed. We'd like you to talk about cramp. Can you talk about cramp, Derek Nimmo, for 60 seconds, starting now?
This is a most horrifying and awfully unpleasant thing that happens to one from time to time, frequently in the most embarrassing places and in the most awful situations as well. I mean, today I was sitting on this very stage by this charming girl, and all of a sudden, my right muscle in my right arm.
Clement Freud, you've challenged.
Repetition, you mean?
No, what are the things?
Repetition.
No.
One of those. Repetition.
Repetition, yes. If you didn't get it right, you know, you wouldn't have got the point.
No,
So, the subject, you get a point, Clement, and you take over the subject. 42 seconds left for cramp, starting now.
This is something which happens predominantly to athletes, but also to actors, and consists of a muscle seizing up and giving an acute pain to the proprietor of the limb in question, which infrequently causes him to jump up, run around, and generally exhibit himself in a manner which he had probably not initially intended to do. I can remember one broadcast not a very long time ago when I was sitting opposite someone called Derek Nimmo, a fairly well-known comedian and light opera actor who's also been seen on television in the part of...
So, cramp brought Clement Freud further up, but he's still trailing a little behind Kenneth Williams, who's still in the lead. Denise Coffey, will you begin the next round? The subject is just music. Can you talk about music for 60 seconds, starting now?
In my opinion, music is the only truly international language humanity has ever evolved for itself. It was discovered very near the beginning of the dawn of time by a distant brontosaurus going, ah. A nearby caveman heard it and went, ah. A pterodactyl flying by went, ah.
Derek Nimmo, you challenge.
He went,
Repetition of a sort of ad.
No, well, they were in different keys, I hope. I mean,
Yes,
not-
they were in different keys, but they were the same actual note. I mean, same actual sound.
Ah.
If you change the sound as well as the key, then you wouldn't have been
It's too
repetitious.
late now telling me that, isn't it?
So Derek has another point, and there are 30 seconds left for music starting now.
One of the great plagues of our present-day society is an overabundance of music. Wherever you go, you hear it. In fact, you don't really listen to it. It just passes over you, and you're not really aware of what...
Clement Freud, why are you challenging?
Repetition of really. It was really, really.
Yes, there was, but it's a rather unfair challenge. But anyway, I've got to give it to you because it's accurate. Therefore, Clement, you have another point and 25 seconds left for music starting now.
If music be the food of love, I don't understand why I keep writing recipes in magazines and broadcasting on how one prepares a Yorkshire pudding or seizes a Swiss roll in one's thumb, carefully nibbling around it so that the jam remains on the tip of the nose. What?
Kenneth Williams, why are you challenging?
Deviations may be very interesting about food, but it's nothing to do with music. The subject is music. We've departed from
Yes,
music.
yes,
Where
you're
have you
quite
gone,
right.
one asks himself. Out the window. Out the window is gone. Is it gone?
Yes, he went with the jam roll out of the window. didn't he? Yes. So I quite agree, he got off music very definitely, and he was well up into food. And so I agree with you, Kenneth. You have another point, 6 seconds for music starting now.
There is a genius who takes these sounds from the air, gives them form, symmetry, poetry, one might add, and becomes...
At the end of that round, the situation is still the same, with Kenneth Williams still in the lead. It's second place, if you want to know, Clement Freud, third, Derek Nimmo, and fourth, Denise Coffey. And Clement, your turn to begin. Mythology. Can you talk to us for just a minute on that, starting now?
There are many people who think that this is the art of being a womanizer on the part of a man who lisps. This is entirely untrue. Mythology is the study of the works of people who wrote like Speak to Me, Muse of the Adventurous Man Who Wandered Long After He Sacked the Sacred Citadel of Rome, which is the first sentence of the Iliad, or possibly the other book, which has a name that escapes me.
Yes, yes. So, Kenneth, I agree with the challenge. You take over the subject. There are 31 seconds left for mythology, starting now.
Well, this is supposed to be, I understand, the study of these myths, how they came about, what gave rise to them, etc. Of course, I suppose one could equally say that this was true of various superstitions, and that you could make up your own mythology. I have a friend who's done precisely this. He has perfected a system whereby he has given certain names to objects and said that they have certain powers.
Well, that, I'm afraid, is all we have time for in this particular edition of Just a Minute. So, to give you the final score, Clement Freud came with a big rush at the end from training right from the start, but he didn't quite manage to catch up and overtake the leader whose lead was so definitely coming. So, reading back was Denise Coffey, fourth place, then Derek Nimmo, and then Clement Freud, all trailing behind this week's winner, Kenneth Williams. I've heard Kenneth say more than once, so lack-a-day, lack-a-day.
Yes, lack-a-day-roo, because I never used to win ever, did I?
Yes,
Never.
and now
My
you've
luck
won.
changed. The wind
2
has
weeks
changed.
running, Kenneth, you have won.
Yes.
Wonderful. I hope you'll come and join us again and be in this great form and show these others just how it's all
Oh, well,
done.
let's do that, Nick. Believe me, I'm right behind you.
Well, we do hope you've enjoyed this particular edition of Just a Minute, and from all of us here, goodbye.
Chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The program was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by David Hatch.